this. Check it out.
به صدای حق و حقیقت است. آنچه که ملاحظه کردید، صدایی که شنیدید، فضای غبارآلود استادیوم
It's never going to be that bad in the control room, guys. I promise you. All joking aside, though, this is justice in a big way. And I do want to dispel with the jokes just for a second here, because this is the same Iranian television network information ministry that has spread lies, blood libels, horrific things for years and years and years, separated the country between people who were loyal to the Ayatollahs and those who weren't, and called for the killings of those who weren't. I mean, this is not some small joke. That was kind of justice in a very big microcosm. But David, this is the kind of thing that I think the American people, if they didn't already know what was going on inside of Iran, they know it now. And I promise I will never shout at you like this on this television show.
Well, that's when fake news gets real, right? When you're watching it and you're like, what is going on? And then obviously there's a very clear explosion. Man, I've been watching this conflict over the last several days, and the precision of these strikes and the intent behind them. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, we've seen a lot of wars, and we've seen a lot of actions taking place in order to either disarm or disable forces that are hostile to our allies in the region. But man, in just a couple of days, the leadership that was taken out by very precise strikes, I mean, and it continues. I mean, like you said, the newest leader in the Iranian army is gone, and just like that. And you saw this when Israel went to war with Hamas and of the other Iranian proxies. They're not playing around. They have very good intelligence. They have very precise weapons. And you know what? Now's a good a time as any to protect Israel from these threats. I mean, look what happened in Syria. We had a regime change in Syria, and that wasn't Israel's regime change. It was a natural regime change. And I think Iran's going to have to go the same way. I mean, I know that Trump is saying he wants Iran to sit down at the negotiation table. But what are we going to get out of it, right? I mean, we've had Iran at the negotiation table before. What are you going to let UN weapons inspectors in to be lied to and shown different things while they continue to enrich uranium? So, I mean, look, at some point, somebody has to do this. And if you watch, nobody's really condemning this. Nobody's calling for a real ceasefire just yet. I think even Iran's allies are like, it's probably good if Israel takes away their capability to have a weapon.
Yeah, I mean, even President Trump last night on Air Force One said he's not looking for a ceasefire. He's looking for a real end to the war, a real end of Iran's hostilities. And again, folks, this is these are the kinds of things that people need to understand what's really going on. Yes, Israel's taken some damage. There have been about 25, 26 people killed in Israel from these attacks. It is tragic. But if you were watching some of the other news channels, particularly CNN and MSNBC, you'd think Israel was losing. They're trying to dissuade the people who are supporting Israel right now and people in Israel. They're trying to discourage them. It's like Tokyo Rose. Honestly, there's never been in 4 days, now we're in our 5th day, so much success from one military over another. This has been an incredible just couple of days. And that's the bottom line, not the sad deaths of a few dozen people in Israel. David, I want to talk about the rules of engagement, because we talk about regime change. We talk about how we don't want U.S. troops in the theater. But why should any nation fighting for its survival spare the life of a guilty leader of a foreign nation when taking that person out could save hundreds of thousands of lives? I feel like we're still in the age of Magna Carta or the gentleman's agreement between kings not to target each other. This is not that situation. And of course, even if we were playing that game, Iran's already broken that agreement. They have tried to assassinate President Trump twice. They have tried to assassinate Benjamin Netanyahu many times. I would like to see, and it sounds like there isn't a lot of condemnation of Israel even considering, because Prime Minister Netanyahu said this yesterday, of Israel even considering taking out Ali Khamenei. I don't know what the moral argument is against that anymore. This is really, I mean, that would probably save maybe even 1 million lives.
Well, look, Iran has been attacking Israel through proxies for a really long time. I mean, if you look at the October 7th attacks, Iran was behind that as well. So this idea that somehow Israel isn't defending itself in doing what it's doing or shouldn't target Iran's leadership. I mean, this is exactly what you should do. They've declared war against Israel. They've promised to wipe them off the face of the earth. And there's no bigger threat in the region than Iran. So absolutely, I think he's a perfect target because he's the head of the snake, and nothing's going to change for Israel. Israel's not going to be any safer, and the region's not going to be any more stable until we do have a leadership change. Yes, you're right. They have targeted President Trump. There are reports that there are sleeper cells in the United States from Iran. Iran is the world's largest state sponsor of terror. So I don't understand why this is even a calculation. I mean, why isn't this the first strike? Why isn't this the initiative? It should be. This is a hostile nation with hostile leadership, and the leadership should be taken out to make a world a safer place. This seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, and you know what's so beautiful about everything we're talking about, David? We're not asking, no one's asking for any more or any other country's involvement in this militarily.
Right.
For those of you who are watching this and thinking, well, this reminds me of all the bad things they said about Saddam. It's not. Israel is simply asking for time, and President Trump has been giving it to them. It's not about making any other nation responsible for anything that's going on here. And look what Israel has done now in 5 days without any other nation's troops on the ground. They don't need any help, and anyone who says that they do is trying to play a little bit of a psychological game with you. Now, it's working because Iran, in the midst of all this, according to a number of reports, the Wall Street Journal, the one leading on this, Iran is going all over the world begging for intervention, begging for another nation to tell Israel to stop and to go back to a negotiating table. Well, no one's coming. I mean, not only is no one coming to Iran's aid to start so-called World War III, which so far no one's shown up to that party, but it doesn't really look like anyone is really yelling for a ceasefire. I mean, not only is President Trump saying he wants an end to the war, not a ceasefire, and giving Israel a tremendous green light, I haven't really seen China or Russia or France or Britain bang on the table and say, we want this war to stop right now, ceasefire, like they usually do. I mean, Iran has found out real fast they don't have the friends they thought they did.
Well, I mean, and that's exactly right. Nobody wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I think collectively the entire region is going, phew, thank you, Israel, for finally doing this, because the reports were that they were days away from having multiple nukes. And this is a concern for everybody. Nobody wants a nuclear war in the Middle East, not Russia, not China, not any of Iran's allies, if they actually have any. Nobody wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Nobody trusts Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Really, this is the best thing that could have happened for peace and stability for the region. And that's why they're letting Israel do what Israel's doing. And you mentioned it's funny because there is a lot of information now coming out because it seems like Iran is desperate. They don't want to lose, whatever that would look like, this conflict with Israel. They already have lost. But the thing is, they're going around now and trying to goat the United States into it, or at least put the perception out there that the United States is into it. But funny enough, it seems like Israel wants the United States involved as well. So it's like you saw last night all over social media and all over the news that the United States was setting warplanes in the air over. I'm like, guys, President Trump's having dinner in Canada. There's no ongoing military operation by the United States right now. But everybody wanted to seem like it was going to happen because that's what Iran needs. Iran needs a foreign intervention, both either on behalf of Israel or on behalf of Iran, so they can somehow get out of this. There is no way out of this for Iran. And I don't think, and just to your point before, a ceasefire isn't the answer here. I think Israel needs to carry out this objective, and I think the world collectively wants to see Israel carry out this objective. Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, and the leadership in Iran cannot be trusted to give them up or sit down in good faith at the negotiation table and just give them up. This has to happen for the safety and stability of the world, and this president, Donald Trump, is probably the last great hope we have to bring stability to the region and eliminate the threat of a nuclear Iran.
You know, again, it's such a good point. Any other president in American history, Republican or Democrat, and anyone who ran for president in the last few elections who lost, would not be doing what President Trump is doing right now. I know to some people this sounds like he sometimes is straddling the fence. I know to some people this sounds like he's sort of changing his position. He's not. You have to understand, you have to put this in relative context compared to what any other president would say, which was, by the way, any other president within 6 hours of this would have called on Israel to stop publicly and privately. The fact that President Trump is not doing that is not only a big thumbs up for Israel and a big green light for Israel, it's a big thumbs up and a real nice moment for the American military, who don't have to do this as long as Israel does it. Because as soon as Israel is told to stop, then Israel asks for guarantees for its safety. And guess who has to provide it? Let Israel take care of this. Give them the time they need. They don't need anything else other than time, and time's valuable. I get that. But President Trump is definitely giving it to them. David Pollack, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your week. And let's enjoy more great victories. This is not a sad story today. I want everyone to understand that.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and happy 6-month anniversary.
Thank you very much. I sound like I'm having like a puppy love anniversary. All right, coming up, time is running out for that July 4th deadline to pass the big, beautiful spending bill. You're going to hear from one senator about what should be the top priorities as these days grow short, folks. And I hope you're not on the way to France right now to see the Mona Lisa. It appears the folks working at the Louvre are a little tired. Grab some cafe au lait and meet me back here for that story in 2 minutes. When American Sunrise Early Edition comes right back. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. You're looking at a live shot of Tel Aviv this morning. Yeah, there was another barrage of Iranian missiles fired on Israel last night, but, you know, the last few barrages have been smaller and smaller. It looks like Iran is running out of ordnance, running out of missile launchers, and there was very, very light damage overnight in all of Israel. So this seems to be working. Special welcome, by the way, to those of you on Getter and Rumble who are commenting. Most of you very positive. Okay, some of you are criticizing me, but that's why we do this, so that I don't think I'm right all the time. TikTok, everybody. We are just 17 days away from that July 4th deadline to pass the big, beautiful spending bill. Senator Rick Scott is laying out his priorities, even as he admits there needs to be more spending cuts in the bill.
So we've got to find ways to save money. We've had a 53% increase in spending during the Biden administration. Right, the House bill cut some, but it cut less than 2%. So there's things to do. As we should completely repeal the Green New Deal. Completely. That's a lot of money. We've got to quit letting blue state governors take federal Medicaid dollars, and give illegals free health care. Right? That's just, it's wrong. Medicaid is supposed to be a match program between the state and the federal government. It's become a federal program, and these blue state governors have taken advantage of it.
Senator Rick Scott making those comments on the Charlie Kirk Show, by the way, which airs every Monday through Friday here on Real America's Voice at 12 noon Eastern Time. Don't miss it. It's on every day of the week. Ah, yes, the Louvre. She's the world's most visited museum and a global symbol of art, beauty, and laziness, I guess. Thousands of tourists were shut out of the museum in Paris yesterday as the workers suddenly decided they were just too tired to work. Now, I'll give them a little bit of credit. There has been a massive increase in the numbers of people coming to the Louvre in recent years. And this is true of all the major tourist sites in Europe. They're really getting overcrowded. I don't know exactly how to fix this problem, but suddenly just calling it quits while there are thousands of people waiting outside is not really nice. If they wanted a little bit of a nap time, maybe they should work at a children's museum. This spontaneous strike happened during a routine internal meeting, kind of like their morning meeting, like, hey, folks, this is what to do. They just refuse to take up their posts and do their job. Again, I understand there's a lot of people who come, but it's not like it's a restaurant or something. It's not like they have to carry heavy dishes. I'm not saying their work is easy, but, hey, folks, maybe they should take 3 Chardonnay lunch breaks and maybe just take it easy for the rest of the day. The French government probably could hire more staff, I guess. Or better yet, here's a crazy idea. How about let a private company manage this site for profit and see how they do with it? I feel sorry, though. On all joking aside, I feel sorry if you flew all the way to Paris and you didn't get to go to the Louvre. All right, you saw it right here on Real America's Voice yesterday, the Trump Organization unveiling its new mobile phone and mobile phone service. And of course, with that announcement came the harsh criticism and accusations that the president is cashing in on his office and on his name. I don't know what world these folks have been living in for the last 250 years, but that's what every president has done. And in fact, just about every other president has done it behind the scenes in nefarious ways. They still can't explain to us how Joe Biden got so rich in all of his years as a senator and president. They still can't really explain why the Clintons got so rich in all their years. Although I do remember a donor buying the Clintons a house. That house in Chappaqua in New York was bought for the Clintons while Bill Clinton was still president. And they found a way to make that legal. And then, of course, there's my favorite trick when ex-politicians write a book that no one's going to buy, and they suddenly get a $10 million royalty for it or an advance for it, even though no one's going to buy it. And it turns out that donors to the president or donors to that politician made an investment in the publishing house just before the book deal. This is about as above board as it's ever been. Now, if you don't want presidents to make money at all while they're in office, pass that law. Until then, I'd rather have them do it above board like they did with the Trump Mobile, because at least then we know what it's going on. It's following all the rules. It's very open in the public. Some people call that crass. They would rather have the money given to them under the table. I wouldn't. All right, speaking of money, this month, Tax Network USA proudly celebrates our nation's birthday, honoring freedom, resilience, and financial independence. To mark the occasion, they're offering 10% off all services through July 4th. If you're dealing with back taxes or missed the April 15th deadline, don't wait. The IRS is rapidly stepping up enforcement. Penalties can add up quickly, up to 5% per month, maxing out at 25% of your total tax bill, just for not filing. That's on top of what you already owe. But there's good news. Tax Network USA can still help you turn things around. Whether you're self-employed, run a business, or your books are a complete mess, their team knows how to cut through the chaos and find solutions that work. Your consultation is always free, and getting ahead of the problem now could help you avoid harsh penalties, wage garnishments, or surprise tax levies, bank levies. Take the first step. Call 800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV. And don't forget, you'll get 10% off of all services through July 4th as part of their celebration of our nation's birthday. Regain control of your finances with expert help from Tax Network USA. Coming up, the opioid epidemic that devastated so much of America is coming with the price for those most responsible. But does the amount do any justice to the victims? I'll have the stats for you when American Sunrise Early Edition continues. That's at Kansas City train station where they held the NFL draft a couple times. Beautiful day there in Kansas City, Missouri. Oh, it's almost time to talk NFL, isn't it? I guess training camp starts in like a month, maybe less. I'm looking forward to it. Let's take a look at where the markets will begin today. We had a rally yesterday, and it looks like we're going to open a little bit lower today. Again, not so much a little bit, about 200 points down. Futures were down 300 points just a moment ago. I think, again, as investors take a look at this situation in the Middle East, they're looking at it very closely. Crude oil's up, but it's only up a dollar. We're at that $73 a barrel mark. That's been kind of the high water mark since this war between Israel and Iran started. Let's take a look at Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has also been acting just as normally as it had been even before all of this. Still in between 104 and 110,000, as I've been saying for several weeks now. So there we are. All right, President Trump says he was hoping to make more progress on some trade deals while he was at the G7 Economic Summit in Western Canada. But after one day and the opening dinner, he cut his time there short to get back to the White House and to observe matters in the Middle East. But the president did officially finalize the new trade deal with Great Britain and Prime Minister Keir Starmer, so it wasn't a complete loss. And Western Canada is really beautiful this time of year, so at least he got to see that. 55 state and U.S. territory attorneys general have agreed to taking a $7.4 billion settlement from Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family. Those are the entities that owned and started really the opioid crisis in the United States. It wasn't just that they made these highly addictive drugs and destructive drugs. They absolutely ran a very hard PR campaign within the medical community to convince very overworked doctors, people who weren't really experts on pharma, to push this painkiller on people. It devastated a lot of American families, a lot of American communities. Just read J.D. Vance's book about it, and you'll know what I'm talking about. $7.4 billion just doesn't seem like enough money to be. But you know what? Even if it were $74 billion, the way these settlements work is it usually mostly goes into the hands of the state governments who set up special funds. Some of it goes to people who are in need, but a lot of it just ends up in the government's hands. Now, private individuals can still sue, and they can still pursue a number of different claims. But honestly, just like it is with tobacco and some other products that have harmed people, it feels like the lawyers win and the politicians win much more than the victims. That's my feeling about it. I don't know if there's any financial number that could make up for what OxyContin did to this country. And again, not so much because it was a failed painkiller. Anyone can make that mistake. But the PR campaign, the pressure on doctors to prescribe it was off the charts. The amount of OxyContin that was sent into certain cities. Some small towns got more OxyContin pills than there were people in the town over and over again every month. Just outrageous. All right. You know, I keep wishing AI chip making king Nvidia wasn't so important to the financial world. Not because I'm not into AI, not because I don't think it's interesting. It's just so boring to talk about on TV. What am I supposed to show you? Look, I'm showing you the corporate headquarters of Nvidia. That's interesting for about 5 seconds, but it's such an important stock. It's so important to the stock market. Now, you might remember that even before all the tariff hullabaloo, Nvidia shares fell sharply when the Chinese came out supposedly with a cheaper version of certain AI products without Nvidia chips. That started a sell-off in Nvidia well before the tariffs hit the stock market as well. Well, here's some good news for you folks. Nvidia is very close right now to touching again the all-time high it hit in December of 2024. Before that decline, they were at a year low, a 52-week low in just April, just 2 months ago. But now they're back just under that all-time high. So everyone can take a sigh of relief right now. There's not going to be an AI sell-off in the market after all. All right, ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. This is Moving America, sponsored by Artillery Tea Company. ArtilleryTeaCo.com. Use promo code AmericasTea for 25% off your first order. Artillery Tea is all natural, whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free, and each tea bag can be used twice. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. ArtilleryTeaCo.com. Promo code AmericasTea for 25% off your first order. All right, Renault CEO Luca De Meo is getting a big upgrade. He's leaving the car company to take the top spot at Gucci parent company Kering. It's also the parent company Yves Saint Laurent. DeMeo has completely an automotive resume, a complete automotive resume. That is his entire career. But he has shown some style in that field. He's best known for making the Fiat 500 a cultural icon. So he's turned around a couple of companies. That's what Gucci is looking for. We'll see. The competition in luxury brands is fierce. Even though you have customers with a lot of money, they can get really, really loyal to someone else really fast. All right, the average purchase price of a new vehicle in the United States now is just about exactly $50,000. It's $49,000 and change. But the Trump tariffs are not really the reason why, at least not yet. A number of automotive publications are noting a major spike in new added dealership fees. This is what's jacking up the price. Two of the most common moves that dealers are using right now are slight reductions in incentives and discounts. In other words, if they were offering you 20% off, now they're offering you 19% off. That's tricky. And they're also doing that increase in delivery and destination charges thing. That's what's going on right now. Again, tariffs may drive prices up soon, but right now it's the dealers being a little cheeky. We see you guys. All right, speaking of ending discounts, the Chinese EV maker that created the price war all over the world in the EV sector is now talking about coming back down to earth. Well, I should make it clear, the Chinese government is telling it to. The name of the company is BYD. They're going to have to start raising prices, according to the Chinese government, because the company is taking a beating on the bottom line with these cut rate prices. And of course, when they take a beating on the bottom line, who has to cover up for it? The Chinese government. But of course, this is the Chinese MO. This is what they usually do. They bring in a product to a foreign country at ridiculously reduced prices that the Chinese government makes sure that the company can afford to keep doing, at least for a while. They drive down the competition in the foreign country because they're so much cheaper. This is what they did with solar panels, by the way. And suddenly that domestic company is in serious trouble. Now, American car companies are still making electric vehicles, but these Chinese cheap prices are absolutely hurting them. And it's really a big deal over in Asia, where China's Asian competitors can't meet this. But obviously right now, I guess the discounts have gone too far and the Chinese government is telling BYD time to raise your prices. We'll see if that works out. Okay, let's wrap up Moving America with a very American vehicle. This is the brand new Ford 2025 F-150 Lobo. It's what they call a performance-focused street truck that trades in backwoods utility for city swagger. Does that sound like enough like a car commercial during a football game? That's what I was going for there. All right, it is a 5-liter V8 engine that cranks out 400 horsepower. The Ford F-150 Lobo has a unique appearance. It was much lower to the ground, and then it has a couple of other effects that make it appear lower than it really is. And if you can find a way to park this bad boy in Manhattan, parallel park it, well, my hat's off to you. Anyway, it retails for just under $60,000. Okay, coming up, I know things are blowing up overseas, but don't forget, we have a major illegal alien crisis in this country. Remember that? And the fight to deport them is still going fast and furious. I'll have an update. And with thousands of hostile illegal aliens in this country from terrorist-laden nations, are our country's most liable targets taking the right precautions while they still can? This is a discussion America needed to have before Boulder and before a lot of other incidents. American Sunrise Early Edition. We'll be right back. It's Tuesday, June 17th. Here are some of this morning's top stories. I've heard of technical difficulties, but this is ridiculous. A screeching host on Iranian state TV boasting about how the Islamist regime will triumph is rudely interrupted live on the air by a message from Israel, and that message was boom. Perhaps no one incident is more telling about this war than that. But there are bigger fish to fry. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says taking out the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, isn't off the table. Hey, if eliminating one guilty man spares the lives of thousands of innocents, is this even a question? Back here in the States, the alleged political assassin in Minnesota, Vance Bolter, he faces an avalanche of charges. But how confident are you that we'll ever learn his real motive? Our recent discovery track record in incidents like this isn't very good, is it? And in Canada, President Trump finalizes a new trade deal with Great Britain at the G7 summit, but then he cuts his time north of the border short to get back to the White House to monitor the Middle East situation. That tells you what's going on in the world. American Sunrise Early Edition continues now. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition and our 6-month anniversary here. It's been 6 months since this show first launched. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching and commenting on platforms like Getter and Rumble and also on X. And I even thank the people who attack me on those platforms. You have every right to do so. Again, I keep saying this is not a passive exercise, watching my news programs at least, and watching here on Real America's Voice. So I thank you so much for sticking with me even this long. And these days, 6 months is a long time, isn't it? Joining me now, though, to talk about something that has been an enduring issue for well longer than those 6 months, and I still think it is the number one issue here in the United States. It's John Thaler. He is an attorney and author of the book Report to the Governor, which details election fraud and other kinds of corruption in the state of Arizona. And, of course, illegal immigration is a big part of it as well. Hey, John, look, President Trump is going right at the heart of the matter now about this illegal migrant situation in this country by asking ICE to focus on sanctuary cities. He did that yesterday. He talked about these cities where Democrat leaders have welcomed in illegal immigrants. And of course, when you welcome in illegal immigrants, you're basically saying there are no laws in this city. You can't just say, well, we're going to ignore a big law. Everything else we're going to enforce. That's not how it works. You either respect all the laws, especially all the big laws, or you don't respect any of them. Here's what he said about that new focus.
I want them to focus on the cities because the cities are where you really have what's called sanctuary cities, and that's where the people are. I look at New York. I look at Chicago. I mean, you got a really bad governor in Chicago and a bad mayor, but the governor's probably the worst in the country, Pritzker. But I look at how that city has been overrun by criminals, and New York and L.A. Look at L.A. L.A. Those people weren't from L.A. They weren't from California. Most of those people, many of those people, and that's the focus. Biden allowed 21 million people to come into our country. Of that, vast numbers of those people were murderers, killers, people from gangs, people from jails. They emptied their jails out into the U.S. Most of those people are in the cities, all blue cities, all Democrat-run cities, and they think they're going to use them to vote. It's not going to happen.
John, it's a long time coming. We know that ICE has been focusing on some cities like Los Angeles and Boston in particular. But what if they put all of their resources in just focusing on the cities? Do you think that would be helpful and would discourage problems in other parts of the country?
It's really hard to know how helpful it would be. It kind of depends on how you want to prioritize this. What the administration first said was that the priority was going to be criminal aliens. And there's plenty of those. We have so far roughly about 170,000 deportations of what we believe to be criminals. Now, mixed in there may be some people who are not necessarily known criminals, but were associating with criminals at the time of the arrest. But essentially, you've got 170,000 so far. So, does it make a lot of sense to go to sanctuary cities? Well, sure, it does in the sense that if you build it, they will come. If you build a place of protection like Los Angeles is, they will come, and they have. What people really need to understand, and I think it's what they need to understand about the riots, is that this is not about illegal aliens per se. The problem in California is that California is losing population. about 1 million residents a year leave the state of California. And over the last 20 years, the only thing that has made up that difference in losing residents has been the Hispanic birth rate and the illegal population. The reason this is a big problem is because every 10 years when we do the census, and the Census Bureau, takes the numbers, illegal aliens are actually counted in the census to determine congressional districts. So if you're losing 1 million residents a year, do the math. The way you make up for it is you bring in illegal aliens, you have them counted in the census, and you prevent your state from losing congressional seats. As most people know, after the 2020 census, both New York and California lost congressional seats. Had they not been able to count illegal aliens, which is what Trump wanted to do originally before he left office, in early 2021, California, instead of losing 1 seat, probably would have lost 2 or 3. New York, which lost 2 seats, would have lost 3 or 4. And that's really what this is all about. So it's not just a matter of going to the cities because that's where they are. It's having to deal, as we've seen, with the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, with the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. That's why they fight so hard to protect illegal aliens. This is all about congressional districting.
All right. That is absolutely a great summary of what we're dealing with here in this country. Not only the welcoming in of illegal aliens for the reasons that you mentioned, but a competition for them. It's like they're a commodity. They don't want them to go to Idaho or some other states that are growing. They don't. They want to keep them there. Now, here you talked about what they're fighting for. Let's talk about how they're fighting for them, because I think the angriest man in America, John, in the last few days has been Senator Alex Padilla of California, because, he pulled that stunt trying to rush Kristi Noem at her press conference the other day. And, he got handcuffed. He got his face on TV, but it would have been the lead story. It would have been a major cause celeb in America. Instead, you had a little thing like the Israeli-Iran war. Then you had the shootings in Minnesota. So Senator Padilla, as you see him, kind of fell right out of the news. But you know what? What you've explained to me right now, it doesn't justify what he did, but you can see why they're so desperate. This is their money. This is their now every state's going to have 2 senators. But of course, he wants a large congressional delegation behind him. Is this why they're being so dramatic and doing so many of these crazy stunts? Yes. Because of what you described?
Yeah, and it's worse than that. One of my books that I wrote was The Decline and Fall of California, and that was written originally in 2007. Senator Padilla has been a major fixture of California politics, for about 40 years now, a long time. He's one of those politicians who doesn't go away. Somebody who starts in the Assembly and moves to the Senate and just never leaves. And the only reason he's out of there was ultimately going to be term limits. Senator Padilla is a huge supporter of illegal immigration. He is one of the problems. He is absolutely positively one of the people who keeps us going. We talk about Newsom because Newsom's become rather famous. We talk about Karen Bass really more because of the fires that happened in California. But Bass and Newsom pale in comparison to Padilla. I watched this news conference live when it was happening. And when I saw Kristi Noem get up to the podium, she actually got up there. She was actually standing there for about 2 minutes or so before she started speaking. Padilla did not ask her any questions, did not do anything, did not motion. He only began his diatribe, his little rant, once she began speaking. He waited about 20 seconds, and then all of a sudden, the cameras pick up what we've gotten used to, which is a kind of a crazy person at a news conference protesting, yelling, screaming, interrupting. He was slowly pushed out of the room. He refused to go. And then when they grabbed him and really then tried to yank him out of the room because she couldn't get through what she was saying, he was entirely interrupting her. That's when the problem began. That's when he said, well, I'm a U.S. Senator. I'm a U.S. Senator. He did not identify himself when he first started speaking. I didn't recognize him. And I grew up in California and wrote a book where he's named in it. And I didn't even recognize what he was doing. This is exactly it. And one more point about this. Padilla, like many of these guys, actually has his own production company. And he had his production company there filming this. So it wasn't just that this was a stunt. It wasn't just that this was, kind of a marvel to get himself on TV. He actually had his own production company there shooting film on this so that when an incident happened, they could immediately edit it and get it out to the media. So most of the time when you see film of him being arrested, the film is actually being taken by the Padilla production company. That's how bad this is.
Everyone's a frustrated actor in LA. I mean, there's a lot of different things about America in the last few years, but that's never changed. That never changes, does it? John, I only have about a minute left, and this is a more serious topic. But, look, we're talking about the illegal alien crisis in America. President Trump talked about it. So many criminals and terrorists that the Biden administration led into the country. And as we saw with the Boulder attack a couple of weeks ago, which, again, seems to be millions of years ago, considering all the news stories, I have to say something to those groups in America that are clearly going to be targeted by these terrorists that have been allowed into the country. And that is, it's time to prepare yourselves. It was time a long time ago. But take advantage of the fact that you've been given another chance here, another warning. Get yourself prepared and take advantage of the greatest chance you have of all, which is that you live in a nation where you can arm yourself, at least today. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? And get yourself trained. What are your thoughts about this? I mean, there are some vulnerable communities in this country. Of course, I'm talking a lot about the Jewish community, but also some other people in this country. They really need to prepare themselves for the worst, don't they?
Well, one thing I would say about it, especially in Los Angeles, is that, Los Angeles and California itself is not a city or a state where you generally can get, your own concealed weapons permit. I've had one for years, but a lot of people can't get them. The sheriff about 2 years ago, a newly elected sheriff of Los Angeles County, came out and said, I think everybody should get a gun, and I'm going to issue permits, regardless of whether the state likes it, regardless of whether the cities like it. I'm going to issue concealed weapons permits because our ability to get to you if you call in a crime is so slow, the reaction times are so slow, that if you don't have a gun, if you do not arm yourself, you are not going to have the ability to defend yourself. We will not be able to get there. So what I would say is this. I don't know necessarily that most people should arm themselves. I think most people, unfortunately, are not trained. But I would say that if you're willing to do the training, if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to take the courses, which many, many, many communities offer, it is absolutely an option to be considered. Also, non-lethal force. They now make a whole variety of stun guns and other non-lethal force weapons that you can get. And what you can do is people, hear the term gun show, and they think all you have is cases and cases and cases of guns. Instead, gun shows are a primary place to go to find alternative weapons. So if you don't want a lethal weapon, if you're not comfortable with a gun, various kinds of stun guns are great. They even make a stun gun that comes out of the bottom of a cane. So if you're somebody who doesn't walk particularly quickly, if you need assistance, you actually have a button on the top of the cane, and you have a little fang that comes out in the bottom of the cane, and you can use that to lift up and stun somebody. It is amazing what non-lethal force weapons are available to people, and people should always check those out because in most states, most communities, you do not need a license to carry them.
Yeah, and whatever you do, take basic self-defense classes, especially teenagers, kids off their way to college, and elderly people too. There are still ways that they can protect themselves even when they're alone. John Thaler, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your week. Let's have a peaceful rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake.
All right, coming up, President Trump's his stance on the Israel-Iran war is anything but politics as usual. David Brody and I will discuss that when American Sunrise Early Edition continues. The friendly confines of Wrigley Field. Neighborhood ballparks, folks. Those ballparks that we go to that are off of some highway exit just don't have the same feeling. I love them just like I love the college football stadiums that are on campus. I'm not a big fan of driving on a highway and in a cement parking lot and pretending that's tailgating and pretending that's going to a game. It just doesn't feel the same to me. That's my opinion. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak. Listen, I hope everyone watching this program understands two things. One, Iran has been the number one source of murderous terrorism in the world for 46 years. It's not even a question. And that regime needs to go. And two, no other president in American history would have even allowed Israel to do half of what it's done in the last 5 days to make that happen. David Brody joins me now. He knows what I'm talking about. Look, I know some of you watching what President Trump has to say feel like he's sort of playing it safe. You have no idea. No other American president, even the ones who were very supportive of Israel, would do what President Trump was doing, which is a de facto green light. And of course, last night on Air Force One, or I should say early this morning on Air Force One, he talked about how he doesn't want a ceasefire. He wants an end to the war, basically saying he wants an end to this Iranian kill machine. David, this is very historic. People need to understand this in context and in a relative sense. Will Israel finally be allowed to end a war and help keep America out of it? That's how America, by the way, gets into wars, not because they join in an Israeli war, but because they stop Israel and then they have to guarantee the peace. That's how we get involved in these situations. Let Israel finish it. I think President Trump is.
I agree with you. Look, this idea that Jesus, listen to me. I'm about to talk about Trump and I talked about Jesus. Whoops, my bad. Look, the fact that Trump, a lot of folks think Trump is a pacifist. He's not a pacifist. He wants peace. But war is inevitable at times. That's biblical. And it's inevitable at times to eradicate evil. And that's what's going on here. And look, this idea that Iran is not a national security threat, why don't you ask the 1,000 plus dead Americans at the hands of the Iranians, of this regime? I mean, you know, first of all, I know we got to run. I got a whole long list, but about over 1,000 Americans have died. Iranians have, the Iranian regime has blood on their hands. You got death to America being the state-sanctioned slogan over there. They tried to assassinate President Trump. Cyber attacks left and right. Of course, they're a national security threat to the United States. So this idea that we're just going to kind of let them have a nuclear weapon and just say, you know what, we'll take care of immigration here. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. Give me a break.
Yeah, and honestly, look what Israel's done in 5 days without one American soldier having to do a thing. It's amazing. All right, American Sunrise Early Edition is done. The big show, American Sunrise, starts now.
American Sunrise is a great way to start your morning. Join us Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We've got the news of the day and some compelling interviews that you don't want to miss. Here's what you missed from yesterday.
Welcome, everybody, to American Sunrise. We got breaking news already right off the top of the show. Let's go to Trump Tower. Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, speaking. Big announcement set for 8 a.m., and here we are. It's 8 a.m. Let's listen in.
One of the places where we felt there was lackluster performance was in the mobile industry. And so with Trump Mobile, we're going to be introducing an entire package of products that people can come, they can get telemedicine on their phone for one flat monthly fee, roadside assistance in their cars, unlimited texting to 100 countries around the world. And we've partnered with some of the best to really bring something unique to the American people.
Well, guys, Emily, you know, Trump Mobile, it's going to be a call center in the United States, phones made in the United States, roadside assistance, telemedicine. I thought that was really neat.
There is a lot to go through here. A very, very exciting announcement. I was having a hard time even taking notes of all of these things that they are going to be addressing with Trump Mobile. But the one thing I'm most excited about is that these phones are going to be made in the United States.
I see this as kind of a compendium and a compilation of some great services in one specific spot. I just hope it's deliverable. I think it's a gargantuan enterprise.
Once again, the Trump organization comes out with something in what they call an underserved market, and a market that may not have served the interests of the average guy.
The G7 summit is set to begin this week, and it is already being overshadowed by Israel and Iran trading strikes at each other and the ongoing trade debates as well. Israel and Iran have been trading strikes since last Friday. Israel first targeted Iranian nuclear facilities, and Iran retaliated with drone strikes of its own.
President Trump and Prime Minister Carney are scheduled to meet this morning. Top of the morning, they're going to meet, and there's a series of 4 sessions today, ranging from the economy to immigration to security and even climate change, as they're dealing with about 200 or so wildfires across Canada here. But they are going to talk about what's really dominating the headlines here is this Iran-Israeli conflict that now has put it front and center of G7.
The Iranian nuclear program is developed because of decades of negligence by prior administration, but also indirectly funded it. So now we're dealing with a situation that we have a lot of work ahead of us at a very heavy price.
And these third world countries, they understand one thing, and that's the stick, force. It's the only way to get something done. And I think Trump said this might make a deal closer. I think he's right about that, guys.
Ahead on American Sunrise, President Trump is demanding an immediate end to the violence between Israel and Iran after days of strikes between the two countries. Ahead, the latest on the nearly week-long conflict. Plus, lawmakers continue to condemn the political violence in Minnesota. But what more can they do to stop those sorts of occurrences? We'll ask a member of Congress. And the Senate is back in session and working to tackle the budget reconciliation bill. When will they wrap up their business, and what should we taxpayers expect from the Senate's version of the spending plan? Those stories and so much more right now on American Sunrise.
Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
we have breaking news to share with you.
Politics.
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
We've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrence.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
Good Tuesday morning to you, and thanks so much for joining us here on American Sunrise. I'm Terrence Bates in your Denver newsroom. Let's bring in David Brody, who's in Washington, D.C., Emily Finn, filling in for Dr. Gina this week in our West Palm Beach studios. Good morning to both of you. It has been a busy 24 hours, really a busy 5 days, if you will, but specifically when it comes to Israel and Iran, the two sides, of course, continuing to trade strikes, and we actually have a very good visual, I think, now of why President Trump is calling for people in Tehran to evacuate. Check out this video from Iranian state television.
که ملاحظه کردید صدایی که شنیدید فضای غبارآلود استادیوم
So yes, that was a strike that happened on Iranian state television as they were on the air. You could see the commentator there leave pretty quickly. I must say, she seemed very calm in leaving. I think I would have been panicked, and there may have been some choice words had it been me, Emily. But good morning to both of you. This is a situation that's continuing to go on, and President Trump now back at the White House to address it.
Absolutely, Terrence. Well, first of all, we missed you so much. Welcome back. Great to have you back on the screen with us here today. A lot of tough news to get to this morning. You know, obviously a very serious situation. The president leaving the G7 a little bit early to head back to D.C., going to be in the Situation Room, looking at everything happening in Iran right now. That video, very terrifying. I promise you, if that happened in our studio, I would be running out of here. That is a very, very, I think, real representation of what is happening on the ground there, David.
Yeah, there's no doubt, Emily. And Terrence, I echo Emily. Welcome back, my friend. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much.
On American Sunrise. That video we just saw was, of course, President Trump this morning at 5:30 a.m. arriving back early from the G7. So he's the president that never sleeps. He is the Energizer Bunny. Look, I think the bottom line question here is, what will the U.S. involvement look like? Look, we know they're involved. Okay, we know they're involved in lots of different ways, but what will full involvement look like, or will there be full involvement? And that's what is splitting MAGA right now. Let's be honest. And we're going to talk about that throughout the show. And then the question really becomes the bunker busting bomb. Will the United States use that on Fordo, of course, that nuclear power plant that's underneath ground, about 60 miles southwest of Tehran? The United States is the only one that can do it. They got the bunker busting bomb, about 30,000 pounds or so, and it can go 200 feet underground. So if that's the case, and that changes the whole complexion of what we're talking about here, guys. But we need to get to the Bible verse, so let's do that, because we got Congressman Mark Alford here in a moment. Here it is. It's from the book of Proverbs. It's Proverbs 17:22. It says, "A merry heart does good like medicine, but a broken spirit dries the bones." All right, so let's talk about Iran and Israel. And there are new bills in both the Senate and House that aim to limit President Trump's power in getting the U.S. into a military conflict with Iran. We have Democrat Virginia Senator Tim Kaine. He introduced a bill that invokes the 1973 War Powers Resolution that gives Congress the ability to declare war. The bill essentially says that President Trump has to get congressional authorization before ordering military strikes against Iran. And also, there's a similar bill in the House that was introduced by Trump nemesis Tom Massey. Democrats actually like that bill as well. For more, let's bring in Missouri Congressman Mark Alford. Congressman, curious to get your take on, obviously, what Tom Massey has introduced, but beyond that, what you make of what's happening. And look, this is splitting MAGA a little bit. I'm not trying to over-dramatize anything, but we're seeing some cracks, some fissures, if you will. We've seen Tucker Carlson, even Marjorie Taylor Greene as well, having concerns about what the president may be doing here. Your take, and good morning to you.
Well, good morning, Emily, Terrence, and David. Good to see you on this Tuesday morning. Look, there's been a fracture, I think, in some of MAGA. Thomas Massey is not a MAGA person. Of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene is. But there is going to be healthy debate on this issue. I am not in favor of restricting the President of the United States from making the necessary movements that we need to make on our end. I do not think at this point we are going to get involved. I am headed to Whiteman Air Force Base, home of the B-2 stealth bomber, in 1 hour. I will be there in 2 hours. It's about an hour from my house. And the B-2 stealth bomber is the only bomber in the world capable of carrying this 30,000-pound bunker-busting bomb. It's about a 12-hour flight from Whiteman Air Force Base. They are capable, ready, and lethal. We have made sure that that program remains that way until we get the B-21. But the point is, here's the question, guys. Do we want the mullahs to continue and the Ayatollah to continue with their nuclear capability, the enrichment of the nuclear the nuclear equipment to make a nuclear bomb and be a threat to Iran and possibly the United States of America. I say no. I think it's time for Israel, as they're doing right now, to finish off this regime.
So, Congressman, this trip that you're taking to the Air Force Base where this B-2 stealth bomber is it for a briefing? Is it simply to visit and lift the spirits of the troops who were stationed there? Tell us more about this trip. You can't just throw something out there like that and not tickle my fancy here and get my mind going.
Well, this was planned some time ago. There's a change of command for the commanding officer, who's also a friend of mine. We've become friends over the last couple of years. But I'm hoping to get a briefing while we're there on the current situation and the readiness of the B-2 platform for any potential involvement in this conflict.
You know, is your expectation, just really quickly, I'm sorry, Emily, but is your expectation at this moment, even though the White House has publicly said and the Pentagon has publicly said that it does not want to engage in war, privately, are you hearing something potentially different? And is your expectation that the United States will be more hands-on, more involved in a conflict between Israel and Iran, or a conflict with Iran, period?
Well, I would never reveal anything that I get privately from our military at Whiteman Air Force Base, but I will say this. I believe in what President Reagan talked about, peace through strength, and we have the capabilities. The Iranian mullahs and the Ayatollah know that. We've used the B-2 to strike the terrorists in Yemen. We did that back in October and have done it since. But we have the capability. They know it. And it's up to them now. They want to get back to the bargaining table. They have passed the deadline on that. Israel is fed up. The Middle East is fed up with Iran. They want to see some changes there. And Iran become part of a normal nation that can deal with Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and other great nations like Egypt. And so they're ready for a change. They want something done. We do too. Let's see what happens.
Congressman, it's obviously a developing, rapidly changing situation in Iran. Awful to see all of the violence, but there's violence happening here in America as well. You had a tweet very recently talking about the recent shootings in Minnesota, that political violence, and you said that you were devastated by the news. Your reaction to all of this?
Well, yeah, in fact, Emmanuel Cleaver, who's a friend of mine, he's a Democrat from Kansas City, a longtime member of the U.S. House. He was on that hit list. We just found out last night. I called him, checking on him and his wife here in Kansas City. They are fine. But look, we have got to do something to bring the rhetoric down. It has gotten way too heated here in America. I want to do my part on that as well. But we've also got to have better security. We have got to get money basically for security. I'm not talking about 24-hour armed guards outside my home here just south of Kansas City. But what I am talking about is making sure that members are secure. Right now, we have to pay for security outside the U.S. Capitol complex. We have to pay with our campaign funds. And I hate going to donors and saying, hey, I need, could you please contribute to our campaign so I can pay for security, because there's a lot of people out there who want to do congressional members harm. I don't think that's right for the system. We've got to provide a way that congressional members feel safe, their families feel safe, and what happened, this deplorable assassination and attempted assassination, never happens again.
Congressman, before we let you go, the big, beautiful bill, what's the latest? We're hearing from the Senate Finance Committee is proposing to make these changes. As I look at it specifically, they say they are suggesting cuts to the child tax credit and also SALT and Medicaid cuts as well. That would be different from the House bill. What are you hearing, and how is this going? What's going to happen?
Well, look, I think we're in trouble on the SALT issue. The state and local taxes that our colleagues from New York, California, and Illinois have fought hard for. We raised the cap on the House bill up to $40,000 deduction off of the federal taxes. Basically, there are a lot of states that feel, and mine in particular, feel that we should not be financing members of other states who don't have good tax policy. But I want these members to get back to Congress, because if they don't get back, we don't have a majority, and everything in 2027, 28 will be about impeaching President Donald J. Trump. We cannot afford to put a stick in the spokes of this bicycle that we're riding down and gaining momentum. And so the Senate has come back. I think the proposal is to keep it at a 10% cap for the, I'm sorry, $10,000 deduction for federal taxes. I think that's going to be a no-go. Michael Lawler has already signaled that he is a no on that. Nicola Lota from New York City is also concerned. Malliotakis, they are very concerned that this SALT cap of $40,000 deduction is not going to hold, and it could be bad news when this gets back to the House.
Wow. At this point, is July 4th still a realistic goal in your mind for getting this thing passed, or are you looking beyond that?
Well, Terrence, I have always been a big proponent of setting deadlines, because if we don't set deadlines, we don't get anything done. Mike Johnson, our speaker, set this deadline for Memorial Day to have the House portion done, and we got it done. This was an aspirational goal to get the Senate done with its part and get it on the president's desk by July 4th so he can sign it on Independence Day. I don't know if it's going to happen. It's still aspirational. The Senate did come back with their text language, so that's a step in the right direction. I think we're going to end up going to conference on this. And it's very rare that this day and age that the Senate and the House actually go to a conference committee to work out the bills, like we all learned that that's the way it's supposed to happen in Schoolhouse Rock. You remember those days. But I think we're going to find a negotiated settlement, a negotiated somewhere in the middle on this, because if we don't, guys, this will be the largest tax increase in U.S. history, and every family watching right now will see a tax increase of about $2,200. We cannot afford to do that to our economy. We've got to keep the America First agenda going. We've got to get the one big, beautiful bill on the president's desk.
Absolutely. Congressman, we'll have to leave the conversation there. Always good to see you. Appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you. Good seeing you.
Thanks, Congressman.
Ahead, a quick look at more of the day's headlines. Plus, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has a new warning for Iranian leaders. His comments are coming up.
This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
In honor of T. Bates being back from vacation, Chicago, Illinois, there it is on this Tuesday morning here across America. Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. I'm David Brody. Coming up, while we were all sleeping, President Trump, of course, was working. This is him on Air Force One overnight, talking to the press specifically about Israel and Iran. We're going to have some of those comments here in just a moment. First, though, T. Bates standing by with the latest headlines from the Real America's Voice newsroom, sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
President Trump is back at the White House this morning after reportedly calling the National Security Council to the Situation Room Monday night. The commander-in-chief left the G7 summit in Canada early in order to return home and strategize about the ongoing situation between Israel and Iran, which is now in its 5th day. The Pentagon says the United States isn't looking to enter a war with Iran and instead, quote, American forces are maintaining their defensive posture and that has not changed. We will protect American troops and our interests. Again, that's a direct quote from the Pentagon. That also the word from the Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell. All of this is the fallout from Israel's strike on Iranian nuclear facilities last week. The back and forth attacks between the two countries has President Trump calling for an evacuation of Tehran, but also emphasizing that a non-nuclear Iran is the only option. Senate Republicans are out with proposed changes to the president's so-called One Big Beautiful bill. The Senate ideas are likely a face-off with House Republicans. One potential area of disagreement could be making business-related tax breaks permanent, while also limiting the deductibility of state and local income taxes. That, of course, is known as SALT. The different versions of the bill in the two Republican-controlled chambers could complicate getting the measure passed by the July 4th deadline, which leaders in both houses have set. Some House Republicans are already criticizing some of the Senate's ideas. The Senate will continue to debate the modified text of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. After passing in the Senate, the bill will then return to the House for approval there before it can make its way to President Trump's desk. And we are continuing to learn more about the man who investigators say killed former Minnesota Democratic House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband. State Senator John Hoffman and his wife were also shot that night, but both survived. Prosecutors say the accused shooter had dozens of additional targets, including officials in at least 3 other states, on his list. He allegedly visited the homes of at least 2 other legislators the night of the attacks. One was on vacation. Police showed up at the other home, so he reportedly left. Prosecutors say all of the politicians named in the 57-year-old's manifesto were Democrats. The list included more than 45 state and federal officials across Minnesota, along with elected officials in Michigan, Ohio, and Wisconsin. The accused killer faces federal charges for murder and stalking. He could be sentenced to death if convicted. State charges include murder and attempted murder. That's a quick check of your headlines. I'll, of course, have more headlines coming your way here in just a little bit, including President Trump now joining his G7 colleagues in signing a joint statement calling for a de-escalation between Israel and Iran. So does the statement hold more weight than simply words on a piece of paper? We'll have the very latest. And next, the United Nations is calling for Israel and Hamas to end the fighting due to humanitarian concerns in Gaza. We'll discuss that angle of the crisis in the Middle East. Right now, though, a quick look at this day in history. It was on this date in 1994 that football great O.J. Simpson captured the nation's attention after refusing to turn himself in to face murder charges in the deaths of his ex-wife Nicole and her friend Ron Goldman. The ensuing police chase was aired live on network television. O.J.'s friend Al Cowlings was behind the wheel of the now infamous Ford Bronco for an hour and a half before he eventually gave up. The criminal trial against O.J. resulted in an acquittal. The subsequent civil trial, however, found the NFL great liable for those deaths. More American Sunrise coming your way after the break.
Tel Aviv live, monitoring Israel, of course, all day long as we enter day 5 now, the Israel-Iran war. Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. President Trump reversing course. He signed the joint G7 summit statement calling for de-escalation between Israel and Iran. So he did this. He originally wasn't going to sign it, but he got some changes. Now the statement says Israel does have a right to defend itself. It also says Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And the Washington Post is reporting that the statement took out language calling for both sides to show restraint. He wasn't going to sign that, but he did after that was removed. So on Air Force One overnight, while we were all sleeping, President Trump was, of course, working and talking to reporters. He called for an immediate end to the conflict between Israel and Iran. Take a look.
What specifically is better than a ceasefire? What are you looking for here?
An end, a real end, not a ceasefire. An end.
So something that will be permanent.
Yeah, or giving up entirely. That's okay too.
Are you close there? Is that possible? Is that possible in the next 24 hours?
Certainly possible. Complete give up. That's possible. Yeah.
Look, he wants peace, but easier said than done. For more, let's bring in former advisor to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and a senior contributing editor to JNS.com, .org, Ruthie Bloom. Ruthie, thanks for being here. Look, Israelis, they're warriors. You wonder, though, if they're going to need the U.S. to help finish the job here, especially when it comes to taking out that Fordo nuclear power plant underground, of course, southwest of Tehran. America has the huge bunker busting bombs. What's your view on that at this point?
Well, first of all, it's not clear whether Israel has the proper bombs to do the Fordo, to destroy Fordo. But what we do know is that American planes arrived in Israel yesterday and the day before with heavy bombs. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the 30,000 pound bombs that are required. The question isn't whether America will do it, will take on the task, but whether, if it doesn't, whether it will provide those bombs to Israel. And I think that President Trump is really moving in the direction of joining the effort, because he sees that the Iranians are not giving up. It's not just the nuclear weapons. They fund terrorism all over the world. They have ballistic missiles and are working on intercontinental ballistic missiles that could reach the United States. And so he said he's losing patience. I mean, he didn't use those words, but he basically said, I told them, I gave him a chance. And, it doesn't look as though there's any progress, and he doesn't want a ceasefire. He wants an end. And an end in this context means a victory for Israel and the West.
Ruthie, we have a clip here of what your former boss had to say about the death of the Iranian Ayatollah and what that would do for the conflicts between Israel and Iran. We want to play this and get your reaction. Let's take a listen.
It's not going to escalate the conflict. It's going to end the conflict. We've had half a century of conflict spread by this regime that terrorizes everyone in the Middle East, has bombed the Aramco oil fields in Saudi Arabia, is spreading terrorism and subversion and sabotage everywhere. That's the forever war is what Iran wants, and they're bringing us to the brink of nuclear war. In fact, what Israel is doing is preventing this, bringing an end to this aggression, and we can only do so by standing up to the forces of evil. Look, democracies have had to learn this lesson. They faced a tyrannical regime, a radical, fanatic regime. For 40 years, I've been saying, actually 3 years after the establishment of this radical Islamist Ayatollah regime in Tehran, I said that the greatest danger, not only to the survival of my country, but to the peace of the world, is Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons. And they are on the brink of achieving that.
Ruthie, what do you make of this?
Well, I think everything he said is absolutely correct. And what we've seen throughout the war since October 7th, 2023, when Hamas invaded Israel and committed these horrific atrocities, the worst against Jews since the Holocaust, that taking out the leadership severely weakens these groups. Because, yes, their ideology remains, but their ability to carry it out is is hindered. We saw it with Hezbollah, we've seen it with Hamas, and we're going to see it with Iran. We can see now that Iran is more of a paper tiger than anybody imagined, for example.
We're hearing more rhetoric coming from the White House, specifically President Trump, as it relates to Iran's nuclear program. Also, Tulsi Gabbard addressing the issue. I'd like you to listen to some of what they had to say and then respond. Here it is.
You've always said that you don't believe Iran should be able to have a nuclear weapon. But how close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having it.
So what is the sense across Israel and across the Middle East in general about how close Iran is, in fact, to having a nuclear weapon? And I think most reasonable people agree that is a non-starter. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, Tulsi Gabbard, I think it's appalling that she says that Iran is not working towards a nuclear weapon and not close to it. I think that's shocking. I'm sorry that she's a member of the Trump administration, because even the International Atomic Energy Agency, no friend to Israel, mind you, more of a European type, UN affiliated type of organization. Even it said that Iran has already enriched uranium to the levels that it has enough to create 9 nuclear bombs. So it's just a question of attaching those warheads to ballistic missiles. And we've seen what these ballistic missiles can do without nuclear weapons on them. We see what the kind of destruction you see when they hit Israel, or even the shrapnel when they're intercepted is huge, deadly, can topple buildings. Imagine if those had nuclear warheads.
Ruthie, really appreciate your time, and thanks for being here in such an important time in history. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Ruthie.
All right, coming up, more breakthroughs coming in detecting Alzheimer's disease. How can a new blood test help? We're going to explain ahead on American Sunrise. Back in a moment, everybody.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Emily Finn, filling in today for Dr. Gina. Thank you so much for joining us. Time now for today's health news, sponsored by the Wellness Company. Under the microscope today, a new potential way to detect Alzheimer's disease. A new FDA-approved blood test can reportedly detect early markers for the disease. Johns Hopkins conducted research on this, and it is now being rolled out to physicians and specialists to order. The test can reportedly look at the levels of two proteins found in plasma, and they can see if levels require a PET scan. Alzheimer's today reportedly impacts nearly 7 million people, and it is expected to rise to 13 million. Well, a new administration in Washington, D.C. has brought a lot of positive changes when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system. The reality is, however, that there's only so much the government can do, and that if we really want to make America healthy again, that starts at home with each and every one of us. And that's where the Wellness Company comes in. You see and hear from TWC doctors all the time on this network, and you know that their products are the gold standard for keeping you and your family safe and healthy. The Wellness Company gives you the opportunity to make sure you are prepared for whatever happens with their series of prescription medical kits. Kits that contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist in the proper use of these medications. Additionally, the Wellness Company offers a variety of products from parasite cleanses to methylene blue to weight loss and so much more. They all can help you stay healthy and live a longer and more satisfying life. Make America healthy again starts at home. Do your part and protect the health of you and your family. Go to www.twc.health/RAV today and order. That's twc.health/RAV and use the promo code RAV to save 10%. Now let's send it over to David Brody. Sheesh, if only I could speak here this morning, David.
Hey, that makes two of us, so welcome.
Yeah, got to get some more coffee in.
Thanks a lot. For sure. Well, at least we're going to save 10%. That's always good to know. So for more on the health of America, let's bring in the director of epigenetics for the Wellness Company. That'd be Dr. Ben Tapper with us again on the show. Dr. Tapper, always good to see you. So for over 70 years, I mean, the United States has been fighting a battle to keep the deadly parasite, it's known as the New World Screwworm, out of the country. But recently, it's been reported that efforts have failed. It's only like a matter of time before the deadly parasite makes its its way to the U.S. So why are we just hearing about this parasite? This is this big deal.
It is. Parasites are a big buzzword right now, and I think more people are waking up to the reality of the issue of parasites. And I think they are realizing that parasites play a bigger role than what we were led to believe. And so, and there's nothing new under the sun. I do believe that parasites play a bigger role, and this, the screwworm is usually passed on with spread by cattle, usually in the illegal cattle trade in other southern continents of the world. But this is an issue, and parasites do play a bigger role than what we're led to believe.
I'm curious why you think maybe the medical establishment, I shouldn't say maybe, the medical establishment seems to have taken its eye off the ball when it comes to the threat parasites pose Americans. What do you make of that?
Well, again, parasites they prey on the vulnerable, they prey on the weak, and usually areas where lower immune systems are present. Again, it's a big issue, and the medical establishment turns a blind eye because the cause of parasites is usually poor lifestyle and really poor immune systems. And so when we focus on lifestyle, there's really not a whole lot of money in that. So the medical establishment turns a blind eye to that, and it's really a major concern. And parasites play a huge role in our level of health. They're a cause for many diseases, and some people think that a lot of cancers are parasitic in nature, and I agree, and I think it's a big deal. And so you look at cancer, the medical establishment they don't want to cure cancer, they want to manage it. They don't want to cure disease, they want to manage disease, and that's a real problem.
Yeah, so what do you recommend if you've either got a parasite or, quite frankly, sometimes you don't even know you have a parasite? That's part of the problem, too.
Right. So the Wellness Company has one of the most powerful, heavy-hitting parasite cleanses, anti-parasitic medications on the market. And so this is something I would recommend. The Ivermectin has been shown to be very helpful in that area. It's an anti-parasitic drug. The Wellness Company, you can get that right at the Wellness Company. It is a very powerful, heavy hitter. Again, a lot of parasitic diseases really are caused by poor lifestyle. So we can't neglect our lifestyle as well. We must eat well, move well, think well. We can be well, but also we have to do it, do a parasite cleanse, something I would recommend highly. It's a lot like the flies in the trash. Well, why did the flies come? Because we have trash laying around. That's a lot like parasites. Parasites come around because we have poor lifestyles or poor immune systems. So we have to take out the flies and take out the trash, and we can be well. And that's really the key and the solution.
So that's a parasite cleanse, really, is what the wellness company is doing there. And a lot more than that, but it is a parasite cleanse in essence.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, and you get that right at the wellness company.
Yeah. So let me ask about COVID. We are talking still about COVID. We've heard recently about this new COVID strain. I guess it's more transmissible. What can you tell us about this exactly?
Well, again, there's nothing new under the sun. I believe that there's always going to be a new strain. I've been doing this for many, many years, and I've been in this realm for many years. There's always a new scare. There's always a new outbreak. There's always a new so-called virus. This NB181 new COVID strain is hitting the market. Again, I think they always have to hit these COVID drums to push more vaccines on the market. This is a real problem, and we need to be on high alert and not fall for these fear-mongering campaigns that are being pushed constantly. I was taught that the flu, if you have a fever, you have a flu, and we need to stop measuring and testing all these different strains. They are all very similar from a symptomatic standpoint. Have to give into this fear, but really just take care of the body, give the body what it needs, and we can be well. The flu season is the so-called vitamin D deficiency season. I live in the Midwest, and most people here are deficient in vitamin D. We must be supplemented with vitamin D during the winter months. Unless we get 30 minutes of summer sunlight, we are going to be deficient in vitamin D. And when we are deficient, our immune systems are vulnerable. Vitamin D is a very heavy hitter when it comes to our immune system. It's a hormone, not a vitamin. And there are thousands upon thousands of functions that vitamin D is a cofactor for in our body. So we all should be, if we're not getting that 30 minutes of summer sunlight, we should all be on vitamin D supplementation. It's just going to help the immune system. Again, I don't fear these new outbreaks. I don't fear this whole new COVID strain. I never got the COVID vaccine, and I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I'm still fine. Why? Because I take care of my body. I supplement with vitamin D during the winter months here. And I avoid the sugar. I get good rest, eat well, think well, move well, and I am well. Thank the Lord for that. But again, we don't have to give into this fear-mongering campaigns. And again, taking our health in our own hands, being proactive here is the key.
No doubt that's the key. And by the way, I got about 30 seconds or so, but while you're here, I'm curious to get your take on HHS Secretary RFK Jr., who fired all of these 17 members of that powerful vaccine advisory committee. The liberal media is up in arms about it. What do you say?
I say good riddance. See you later. I think it's, these people have a history of corruption, of censorship. They are gaslighting these poor parents of vaccine injury. They are protecting establishment and not the people. And so I think this is an excellent step in the right direction. We need to, I feel like we should just eradicate the ACIP in general, but I think this is a really good direction change is needed. It's been needed. So I'm very thankful that these 17 people are let go.
Dr. Ben Tapper, glad you're not related to Jake Tapper, so praise God for that. Great to have you here. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, thanks, sir.
All right, coming up, Tucker Carlson appeared with Rav's own Steve Bannon to respond to the criticism that he's facing for coming out against President Trump's stance on the Israel-Iran war. We're going to have his remarks ahead on American Sunrise. Back in a moment, everybody.
back to American Sunrise. We appreciate you being here with us. Well, you already know that that feeling when your coffee actually does what it's supposed to do. It clears your head, it lifts your energy, and it doesn't leave you crashing an hour later. That's what good coffee is supposed to feel like. That's also what you get with 1775 coffee. This coffee is organic, it's single origin, high altitude, and small batch roasted. That means no toxins, no acidity, no jitters, just smooth, clean coffee that fuels your day without weighing you down. Right now, they're offering a free starter kit. It's 3 bags of premium coffee plus exclusive coffee merch, including a matte black tumbler, a frother, a gold scoop, or a reusable K-cup filler. You pay for 2 bags of coffee, and $17.75 covers the rest. Whether you drink whole bean ground coffee or K-cup pods, you choose your option. This means you're paying less than $1 a cup for coffee quality that you won't find in most stores. Head to 1775coffee.com/Rav and grab your starter kit while the offer is still available. All right, folks, now that we're all caffeinated, it is time to stay awake, not woke. And this morning, we're talking about Tucker Carlson, who has come under fire recently for criticizing President Trump for his stance on Israel. Tucker said that President Trump needs to distance himself. President Trump responding by slamming Carlson, saying that he decides what's America first. Rav's own Steve Bannon had the chance to ask Tucker some pretty tough questions about his comments. Here's part of that interview.
I actually really love Trump. I think he's a deeply humane, kind person. And I am saying this because I'm really afraid that my country's going to be further weakened by this. I think we're going to see the end of American empire, obviously. Other nations would like to see that, and this is a perfect way to scuttle the USS America on the shoals of Iran. But it's also going to end, I believe, Trump's presidency and effectively end it. And so that's why I'm saying this.
What do you mean by that? That's coming from you. That's
you get. Look, I knew Bush. I knew George W. Bush. We had, family connections to Bush. I knew Bush personally. I still see Bush sometimes, and of course, he hates me, and he does because I criticized him on Iraq, and that war is the sum total, from a historical perspective, of his administration. But I knew him, and he had all kinds of plans for the things that he wanted to do. But once domestically
right.
To improve the country.
Right.
And you may agree or disagree, but in his mind, he wasn't just about the invasion of Iraq in March of 2000.
Oh, no. He was going to redo Social Security.
100%,
he had all this, all types of, he was going to take care of the entitlements issue.
And he really thought it was going to work.
Yep.
And you could laugh at that or whatever, but the point is, the second you get enmeshed in a real war, not a fake, let's go bomb the villagers and declare success, though we don't even have a good track record. Why are the Houthis still there? There's a whole other question, right, which is how prepared is the U.S. military for a real conflict? And the answer is totally unprepared. Scary unprepared. I don't think people understand that. But anyway, the only reason I'm saying any of this is because I really, really care.
Let's bring in David and Emily now to talk a bit more about this. David, I want to go to you first. Your gut reaction to what you just heard from Tucker.
Well, look, there's a lot to unpack here, so I'm going to do the Reader's Digest version. First of all, let's do the disclaimer. MAGA can disagree, okay? It's okay. Everybody calm down and take a 1984 chill pill. So I think that's important to understand. Having said that, I fundamentally disagree with Tucker Carlson, and so does President Trump. And so do a lot of our audience. And guess what? Some of our audience as well agrees with Tucker Carlson, and that's okay. But, in terms of this, the media is going to make this a MAGA fissure, fracture narrative. And to a degree, they would be right. They're going to play it up like they always do. It's always negative and it's big and all of that. But there is a fissure. I mean, look, Marjorie Taylor Greene has come out. Because remember, we're going to play this later, but there's a tweet from President Trump saying kooky Tucker Carlson should realize that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. So Trump is getting into it now. Tucker Carlson thinks Trump's presidency is over if he does go full with Israel. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is now on Tucker Carlson's side. So we are starting to see a bit of a fracturing, Emily. There's a lot more to say. I can explain why I think it's in America's best interest and national security interest to be there for Israel, but that's probably a conversation for another day.
Sure. I think you're absolutely right, David. It seems like Tucker Carlson is kind of leading the charge on this divide right now, intentionally or not, I'm not sure. Look, I will say, to be completely honest, I'm the Gen Z girl on this show, right? I'm playing a lot of catch up with all of the history behind everything happening in the Middle East right now. And the thing that I've always liked and respected about Tucker Carlson is that he challenges the narrative of history. He offers different perspectives. I've always loved listening to him, always took what he had to say into consideration. And I wish that the president was doing the same. I don't think that this fight, this spat between the two is helpful. It's okay to say that Tucker is entitled to his opinion, and that's that, and leave it there. David, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. I don't want to see it. It's messy for sure. But look, it's more. Go ahead. What's that? Is it what?
I'm just asking, is it really messy? Okay, so Tucker Carlson has an opinion, which he, of course, is entitled to. Yes, it differs from President Trump's, but ultimately, President Trump is the one who has the power, the authority, and the duty to make a decision, and he is moving forward with the decision that he thinks is right. Well, people can question that.
Here's what I'll say, Terrence, really quick. I think loyalty, the concept of loyalty is so incredibly important in the MAGA base, just because, the MAGA base has had to bind together to fight against the left, right? And everyone that's been attacking them from the other side. So this split, I think just the concept of loyalty, that's why this is happening. People feel like they have to pick a side between Tucker or the president. But you're right, Terrence, they really don't. It's just a difference of opinion, and you can consider both.
Yeah, no one wants forever David, you've wars, got the last word. No, I just want to say no one wants forever wars. No one wants boots on the ground in Iraq. And this idea that a situation in Iran is going to be a forever war, I fundamentally disagree with that. Absolutely not. I think what the plan here is, to a degree, I believe that the Iranian people potentially will rise up with all of the unrest, because they've been wanting to do this for 10 to 15 years to basically have a new government, if you will, not a regime, but an actual government. So I think nation building has to come from the Iranian people. If we're going to put boots on the ground and start to say, you need freedom, you need to do it America's way. No, I don't want that. No one wants that. And I don't think that's going to happen. Tucker Carlson, I clearly thinks that is going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I think what we're going to see coming up in the next maybe couple months, maybe longer, an Iranian uprising, kind of like what happened in Egypt with the Muslim Brotherhood. I think that is what could happen, guys.
Well, we're going to be watching it all as it continues to unfold, guys. Great conversation there. Coming up, a Father's Day surprise for the men of a local Catholic church brings smiles and cheers to many. We've got the story coming up here on American Sunrise.
created the heaven and the earth.
I want to party with that guy, our Bible announcer. Do I really want to party with him? Anyhow, welcome back to American Sunrise. Time now for our moment of faith, brought to us by Lee Greenwood and the God Bless the USA Bible. Hey, before we get to what's in focus today, I wanted to share a Father's Day surprise. It's from a Catholic church down in Texas. So the women who belong to the church there, they banded together. So they surprised their husbands with matching polo shirts. So once the dads pulled up to the church, they all saw that they were wearing the same matching polo shirt. A nice little Father's Day move of solidarity. Wanted to share that with you before we move on to what's in focus today. And that is President Trump's Religious Liberty Commission. They met for the first time yesterday at the Museum of the Bible. Father Frank Pavone, who, of course, you see regularly on this show, attended the meeting. The commission is looking at current threats to religious liberty here at home and ways to protect it. So what was accomplished at the meeting? Hey, I have an idea. Let's ask Father Frank Pavone, the man himself. He's the director of Priests for Life. Father Frank Pavone, thanks for being here. Well,
great to be back.
How did it go? We've got some video we'll put up here of the meeting yesterday. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, there. But tell us more about it.
Yes, Pam was there because this commission was set up under the Department of Justice, and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, great guy, great friend, he chairs this commission. In fact, he had shared with President Trump this idea shortly after he was reelected. And the purpose of the commission, this was technically a hearing, and it was done that way. The commission members were on the stage. It included, by the way, Dr. Phil, Pastor Paula White, Kelly Shackelford of First Liberty, and many other people that would be known to our audience. And there were actually witnesses, experts who came forward, like Dr. Gerard Bradley, for example, who talked about why the founders believed that religious freedom was at the heart of America. Good religion goes together with good government, and people have a duty to the Creator. The right to religion comes from the fact that we have a duty to the Creator. So we reviewed some of the history, we reviewed some of the constitutional cases, but here's the point. This was the first hearing of what will be almost monthly meetings. And the purpose is to create recommendations to President Trump of how we can continue to increase religious freedom in America. That it's good that the government promote religion. Not that the government establish religion. Okay, we don't have a state religion. But that the government promote religion? Yes, that was what the commission was saying yesterday. It's like, let's move forward beyond just that it's a freedom, but that it's a positive good, and good for peace in the world, good for economic prosperity, good for the rights of parents and families, good for the protection of the most vulnerable, including the unborn. So we want to hear from everyday Americans. Maybe this is the most important point for our audience. Connecting with groups like ours at Priests for Life, connecting with the various groups that all of our viewers know. Let us know your experiences. Are you free? Do you feel free to profess and put into practice your faith in everyday American life? And if not, the president wants to hear about your experiences. And if you have ideas about how religion can flourish even better in our country, we want to hear your ideas, and they'll be channeled into this commission, which after about another 9-10 months or so, will make formal recommendations to the president. So we got off to a great start yesterday.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it really boils down to we the people. You want suggestions because it needs to come from the ground up. Father Frank Pavone, thanks for being here, and I'm glad we had you on to talk about this very important issue. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, we're back with the second hour of American Sunrise in 2 minutos. Stick around.
Introducing the limited edition God Bless the USA Bible, inspired by Lee Greenwood's hit song and the most recognized patriotic anthem in America, God Bless the USA. The God Bless the USA large print leather-bound King James Bible also contains America's founding documents, the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Pledge of Allegiance, along with a handwritten chorus to Lee Greenwood's song, God Bless the USA. With its large print and slim design, This Bible invites you to explore God's Word anywhere, anytime. The God Bless the USA Bible makes the perfect gift and cherished family heirloom keepsake to pass on to future generations. Designed for an easy reading experience in the trusted King James Version translation, this large print Bible is perfect to take to church, Bible study, work, and for traveling. Order yours today at GodBlessTheUSABible.com.
Ahead on American Sunrise, the Israel-Iran war hits a critical juncture as President Trump leaves the G7 early and gathers his National Security Council. All of this as he warns residents of Tehran to evacuate. In the meantime, Vladimir Putin issuing a warning of his own to Iran's supreme leader, saying your survival is at stake if you continue hostilities with Israel. The world is holding its collective breath and waiting to see if Iran will back down. And back here at home, Tucker Carlson continues to criticize President Trump, calling the commander-in-chief complicit in an act of war for backing Israel. Tucker is also warning that he believes we could be days away from all-out war. And as deportations of illegals rise, the U.S. is on track for its lowest murder rate on record. Coincidence or cause and effect? We'll explore. Finally, murder in Minnesota. The Department of Justice files charges against the alleged assassin who's accused of shooting two lawmakers and their spouses. We've got the inside story of who the guy is. And we all had fun with the phrase, but is Let's Go Brandon protected by the First Amendment in school? Find out why judges are unsure about that question. That story and so much more right now on American Sunrise.
Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
we have breaking news to share with you.
Politics.
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
We've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrence.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
And welcome back, everybody, to the second hour of American Sunrise. I'm David Brody. I'm coming to you from D.C. Let's bring in Emily Finn in West Palm Beach. She's filling in for Dr. G. T. Bates in our Denver newsroom after a long and well-deserved vacation. Good morning to both of you. And T. Bates, we missed you. We missed you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I missed you guys. I didn't miss being at work, but I am appreciative to have a job to come back to. I don't know about you guys, but I've got to do something different when it comes to vacation because I feel like I need a vacation from the vacation. I try to pack so much into it, and it's not restful typically at all. And at my age now, David, Emily, you're a little younger than we are, but at my age now, I'm like, okay, I just need to go to somebody's beach and eat and drink and be quiet for a little while. That needs to be what vacation looks like for me in the future. That's a whole nother issue, though.
Hey, that's how I like to vacation, even being my age, Terrence. So I don't know. I think that I think beaches are in my future as well. I'm really happy you're back, though. I know our viewers missed you, too.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Appreciate
and by the way, I can just tell you that at our age, we've gone from being hip in our 20s to having a bad hip. So that's kind of the way things kind of morph. But
I think you guys are both still very hip. Don't you worry.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm a little more hippie, especially after all the food I ate during that vacation. Right. I looked at my own hips and was like, yeah, bro, you need to chill out a little bit. Anyway, guys, let's get to this morning's headlines because there's a lot to talk about. President Trump, of course, top of the list. He is back at the White House this morning after reportedly meeting with the National Security Council in the Situation Room, or at least calling for them to go to the Situation Room Monday night. The president left the G7 summit in Canada early on Monday in order to return home and strategize about the ongoing situation between Israel and Iran, which is now in its 5th day. The Pentagon says the United States isn't looking to enter a war with Iran and instead, quote, American forces are maintaining their defensive posture and that has not changed. We will protect American troops and our interests. That, by way of the word, from Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell. Now, all of this is the fallout from Israel's strike on Iranian nuclear facilities last week. The back and forth attacks between the two countries has President Trump calling for an evacuation of Tehran, but also emphasizing that a non-nuclear Iran is the only option. Senate Republicans are out with proposed changes to the president's so-called One Big Beautiful bill. The Senate ideas are likely to set up a face-off with House Republicans, though. One potential area of disagreement could be making business-related tax breaks permanent while also limiting the deductibility of state and local income taxes or SALT. The different versions of the bill in the two Republican-controlled chambers could complicate getting the measure passed by the July 4th deadline, which leaders in both houses have set. Some House Republicans, however, already criticizing some of the Senate's ideas. The Senate will continue to debate the modified text of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. After passing in the Senate, that bill will return to the House for approval there before it can make it to President Trump's desk. We are continuing to learn more about the man who investigators say killed former Minnesota Democratic House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband. State Senator John Hoffman and his wife were also shot that night, but both survived. Prosecutors say the accused shooter had dozens of additional targets, including officials in at least 3 other states. He allegedly visited the homes of at least 2 other legislators the night of the attacks. One was on vacation and police showed up at the other home, so he reportedly left. Prosecutors say all of the politicians named in the 57-year-old's manifesto were Democrats. The list included more than 45 state and federal officials across Minnesota, along with elected officials in Michigan, Ohio, and Wisconsin. The accused killer faces federal charges for murder and stalking. He could be sentenced to death if convicted. State charges include murder and attempted murder. That's a quick check of your headlines. I'll have more headlines coming your way here in just a little bit. But now let's get you back over to David.
Okay, T. Bates, appreciate it. Let's turn our attention now back to the Middle East. Israel, Iran continue to lob missiles at each other. 5th day of the conflict now continuing. In Iran, at least 224 people have been killed since hostilities began. In Israel, it's 24 people that have been killed, at least. President Trump left the G7 summit early to assemble the National Security Council while telling residents of Tehran to evacuate immediately. Israel's prime minister said he believes Israel's strikes have significantly set back Iran's nuclear program. Joining us now with the latest, John Solomon, editor-in-chief of Just the News and, of course, host of Just the News No Noise here on Real America's Voice. John, you may have seen this video, but we want to play this real quick. This is an actual Iranian TV station basically getting blown up live on the air. Take a look.
متجاوز به خاک وطن صدای متجاوز به صدای حق و حقیقت است آنچه که ملاحظه کردید، صدایی که شنیدید، فضای غبارآلود استدیو.
Yeah, that's called technical difficulties. John, what's the deal in terms of U.S. involvement here? What is your sense as to how much the United States is going to get involved? It's an unanswered question at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't in the sense that President Trump said we're on the sidelines right now. We'll provide defensive capabilities to Israel for the Iranian attacks. Here's the big issue. Israel's pretty much got this covered, right? They've got the superiority in the skies. They can bomb at will. They can cut off a broadcast in a second by dropping a bomb while it's live and broadcasting. The issue is these deep bunkered nuclear capabilities that Iran has on a mountainside and then deep under the ground in Iran. If Israel has to drop Moabs, they can't drop the big mother of all bombs, the supersized bunker busters, the same size that a B-2 can. So an Israeli jet can carry a smaller version, and they would have to make 5-6 runs at it to blow up a nuclear facility, and that's going to, of course, increase the risk a little bit to the pilots and to people on the ground. One Moab from a B-2 would probably implode the entire facilities. I think, there's a debate. Does Trump allow B-2 to go one time with Israel and drop that bomb? We'll see. I suspect that Israel will be able to do it on its own, and we'll be able to stay on the sidelines of the war right now. But war's war. It's unpredictable. It changes by the minute. We could see some changes. But I think the real question is they want to finish the job of eliminating these nuclear sites and all of their uranium supplies. And how many Moabs, how many mother of all bombs are they going to have to drop in order to achieve that? And I think that's the big question.
John, to your point, if the United States does in fact stay on the sidelines, as you properly pointed out, as President Trump and even the Pentagon has said it likely will, even providing material assistance, providing bombs, providing any sort of support is going to be seen regionally as the United States being involved, even if indirectly.
Yeah, most of the Moabs that have been provided were provided to Israel many, many years ago under the first Trump administration. And so they've been there. We are providing some real support when it comes to defensive missiles. I think most people say, well, that's fine. Listen, Israel wouldn't be doing this unless Donald Trump gave a wink and a nod and said, you go ahead and do it. You got to protect yourself. This is the moment. I understand. So there is an implicit go ahead and do it. But the actual use of U.S. troops or U.S. pilots to do it thus far seems to be off the table. Now, two things can change that very quickly. If Iran were to significantly attack the United States somewhere in the world, a terror attack on our soil, a terror attack in Western Europe, a attack on U.S. troops in the Middle East, I think Donald Trump would release all fury. He said so. The second thing is if Israel begins to struggle, if it runs out of Moabs and they haven't finished the job, there'll be a temptation for the Trump administration to go in and finish the job. We'll see. I think President Trump has been telegraphing something big is about to happen in the next 24, 48 hours. Let's see what that is.
John, this headline gave me cause to pause this morning. I want to get your take on this as well. FBI gives Congress intel on alleged Chinese plot to create fake mail-in ballots in 2020. That coming from Just the News. Tell us more about this.
This is perhaps one of the biggest stories that have never been told from the 2020 election. Last night, we broke this story. These are documents that were recently located by Kash Patel. They provide significant intelligence.
One of the anti-China, one of the China intelligence monitors inside the FBI had developed a source who said that China was deeply involved in sending fake licenses to Chinese residents on the ground here, legally and illegally, in hopes that they could get mail-in ballots and file fake mail-in ballots to help Joe Biden win the election. Now, it went out to all intelligence agencies, and then a few days later, it was recalled, and there was no further follow-up, according to Kash Patel. But the significant thing is the corroborating evidence was sitting in another federal law enforcement agency. The Customs and Border Protection Agency did, in fact, intercept some of those licenses, clearly showing that people in Hong Kong and China associated with the Chinese government were, in fact, sending licenses to people in the United States, assumably to help them vote. The FBI didn't even follow up on that when CBP reported it. So instead of looking at a serious foreign interference in our election, the FBI turned a blind blind eye to it. It's the second known case of foreign interference in the 2020 election. We also know from an indictment filed a year later that Iran sent two people, or two major hackers, to hack into a voter database to assume American voters' identities and to create chaos in the 2020 election. Now, we all remember the 60 Minutes piece in December 2020, where Chris Krebs, the director of the Cyber Security Infrastructure Security Agency, told everyone there were no foreign intrusions. This was a completely clean election. That statement we now know to be truly false. The American people were told something that simply wasn't true. Iran, by that time, had clearly intruded, and there was some significant evidence also that China, and that's what these documents show. Chuck Grassley, I expect, will release the full documents later today. I have a good description of them in my story, along with on-the-record statements. But this is a big, major election integrity issue coming from the top of the FBI, Kash Patel himself.
Wow, explosive story, John. And the beauty of Just the News has always been you bring the receipts every single time. John Solomon, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
All right. Coming up, murder most foul in Minnesota. The Department of Justice filing charges against the alleged assassin in the Minnesota shootings of two lawmakers and their spouses. In moments, we're going to break down the charges and offer the inside story of who the alleged gunman is exactly. Next, though, it's time to drain the swamp, and the waste not only headed down the drain, it's a danger to all of our well-being. Call it a power flush. That's ahead as American Sunrise continues.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm American Sunrise contributor Emily Finn. It's great to have you with us this morning. Time now to drain the swamp. And today we go beyond the swamp because we're draining the entire nation of illegal immigrants. And here's why. This headline: as deportations rise, the U.S. is on track for the lowest murder rate on record. We want to know what you think. Let us know on Rumble or Getter. Hop on and let your voice be heard. Up next, murder in Minnesota. In moments, the latest on the alleged gunman. Cops are not ruling out the possibility that he is part of a broader network, and why President Trump is placing the blame directly at Kamala Harris's former running mate. And later, Tucker Carlson turns on President Trump. The former Fox News host says that Trump is, quote, complicit for backing Israel after attacks on Iran. This war of words has the potential to get ugly, and it's ahead as American Sunrise continues.
Welcome back, everyone. We're getting ready for the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. I have to admit, over the past couple of weeks, I haven't been as focused on the stock exchange. Instead, I've been focused on the dollar's value versus the euro and the Icelandic krona. It wasn't good. Trust me, I'm still dealing with some PTSD from that. But I can tell you right now, pre-market trading not looking so hot. As you can see, the Dow, S&P 500, and NASDAQ are all down right now. The bottom half, crude oil and silver, are kind of the bright spots on our board at the moment. Hopefully all of that will change. We'll take you to New York for the opening bell at the stock exchange here in just a little bit. But first, let's get you over to David. David, I'm just going to say, on this vacation, we spent a few days in Iceland, and I'm not good at math. That's why I do broadcasting. And let me just put it this way. I paid for dinner. It was more than I've ever paid for dinner in my life. While it was tasty, it wasn't that tasty. And it just goes to show I should be better at math and converting numbers.
And that was in Iceland, you said? Iceland?
That was in Iceland. It was an icy walk home. Let me put it that way. It was a very chilly walk home after. Oh, my God. That's a whole nother. I'll have to share that at a later date.
And the next time, no more next time on that. When hell freezes over, so to speak, that won't happen.
Pretty much.
Sure. All right.
Pretty much.
All right, T. Bates. Appreciate it. Turning our attention now, look, to Minnesota and the murder of a state representative and her husband and the wounding of a state senator and his spouse. The shootings were described by police as targeted, politically motivated. President Trump spoke about the crimes, telling ABC News he thinks Governor Tim Walz is, quote, terrible and grossly incompetent. Trump is considering giving Walz a phone call to discuss the shootings, but then recently said, why really bother? It's kind of ridiculous. Police arrested suspect Vance Bolter on Sunday night, who they believe killed a Minnesota state congresswoman and her husband, and a state senator and his wife. President Trump condemning the attacks in a post on Truth Social, saying, quote, violence will not be tolerated in the United States of America. All right, for more on the investigation, we're joined by Liz Collins, senior producer and investigative reporter for Alpha News. That is a Minnesota news organization whose mission is to report stories that go untold by the state's mainstream media or liberal media. Liz, thanks for being here. So what is the latest you're hearing, especially about the alleged gunman, Vance Bolter? I mean, we're hearing all sorts of different things about him. I don't think we have, Liz. Hopefully she will get to us in just a moment, unless she's ignoring me. No, just kidding. Let's bring in T. Bates to talk about this. You know, T, here's the thing with this story. It has been kind of bizarre because we heard that from his roommate that he's a Trump supporter, but then again, he has a wife. So why does he have roommates? And then the wife was arrested. Not arrested. Wife was stopped because she had cash in the car and passports. I don't know. There's a lot of loose ends here, and I don't really know what to make of any of this, quite frankly.
Yeah, and I will say this, David. The moment I heard that there were Democrats on the list, that this list was exclusively Democrats, I knew that there was going to be some link that, you know, the narrative was going to shift that, oh, he was a Trump supporter. Who knows? Like, who knows if that's the case? But I knew that would be the narrative. What I think, though, is the bigger picture here, and it's a picture I think that many are starting to address, is the fact that this sort of crime, this sort of aggressiveness towards lawmakers, be they Democrat or Republican, is just getting out of control. It's already been out of control. We were saying that in the summer after the assassination attempts, plural, against President Trump. But this just, I think, reinforces that this is out of control and something I think more needs to be done. What? I don't know. If I did, I'd probably be running for office. But something needs to be done. That I do know, David.
Well, and for sure. And do we really need to say on the air that if you disagree with someone's politics, don't shoot the person, don't kill the person? Really? Right. That's where we are in America, that we have to even say that? I mean, it's just, I don't care if you're a Trump supporter or not a Trump supporter. I don't care if you're a liberal or conservative. You don't kill people over politics. Quite frankly, you shouldn't kill people anyhow. Murder is a sin. Look, to me, what's also interesting here, T. Bates, is that these lawmakers both had their homes, their addresses available easily online. And I think that has got to be a concern going forward as to how much information can be accessible online. And I know you can pretty much get anything online nowadays, but that's just dangerous. The fact that their home addresses would be there, and we don't want to make it easier for kooks and crazies.
Yeah, I see it both ways. I agree with you. It is dangerous, and unfortunately, it's a sad commentary about where we are as a society at this point. But at the same time, if I'm serving you, if I'm your elected official, then for me, and this is maybe I'm naive here, but I think I would open my home to you. Do I want you to come over at dinner time and speak to me? No. But I do think that there's a sense of accessibility that you create if you say, look, I'm just like you. I'm your neighbor. You happen to elect me, but I'm your neighbor. And if you've got an issue and you don't feel like you can get that issue addressed during other means or during the proper through the proper channels, then why not drop by, or why not I'm being accessible? I think it does send a message, if you will, of accessibility. Now, unfortunately, in this day and age and in this environment, it's dangerous to do so. But there is part of me that thinks that's reasonable. And I would tend to agree with the idea of accessibility, or at least the implication of accessibility, albeit how dangerous it has become.
No, I agree. And that leads me kind of into this last point. I know we got to wrap because we've got the stock market coming up. But here's the thing. I mean, Tim Walz's solution apparently was to say, well, maybe we shouldn't have people go to political events. It's like, what? That's not the solution. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just kind of like the hands up kind of strategy of like, oh, well, I give up. This is just politics getting out of control. So maybe you shouldn't attend political events. I mean, that's ridiculous, T.
That's Yeah, ridiculous is the nice way to put it. I would use a word that starts with I and ends with ick in terms of of that sort of that argument. Yeah. But at the same time, I also think that it's incumbent on people like Tim Walz to really take a strong stand and to denounce these sorts of things, because the temperature has been raised so much simply by political infighting between the parties. And at some point, somebody's got to be the adult in the room and stand up and say enough is enough. We can't have this anymore. No, and I'm not necessarily seeing that happening at this point.
Listen, I know you don't want more airtime. I know you're a humble man, but guess what, T? You're getting more airtime because we're heading back to you for the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange, sir. And it is sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
I almost forgot how to do this part of the show. We are getting ready for the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. Virtu is at the podium. Virtu Financial is at the podium. You hear the applause. The bell is going to ring momentarily, and then we'll get a sense of how the markets are ultimately looking for the day. All right, let's hear it. The bell's going to ring here momentarily, and there we go. The bell is ringing. That means the markets are now officially open. And just like that, it looks like the Dow and S&P 500 are still down, and the NASDAQ, you saw it just change back to the red as well. It's down as well. We do have a couple of green spots there on our board, but not enough. Hopefully, though, this is going to be a good day of trading for you if you're an investor on the markets. We'll, of course, continue to monitor it for you throughout the day. By the way, this month, Tax Network USA proudly celebrates the nation's birthday, honoring freedom, resilience, and financial independence. To mark the occasion, they're offering 10% off of all services through July 4th. If you're dealing with back taxes or if you missed the April 15th deadline, don't wait. The IRS is rapidly stepping up enforcement, and penalties can really add up quickly, up to 5% per month, maxing out at 25% of your total tax bill, just for not filing. And that's on top of what you already owe. But there is good news here. Tax Network USA can still help you turn things around. Whether you're self-employed, if you run a business, or if your books are a complete mess, their team knows how to cut through the chaos and make solutions that work. Your consultation is always free, and getting ahead of the problem now could help you avoid harsh penalties, wage garnishments, or surprise bank levies. Take the first step by calling 800-905-8000 or visiting tnusa.com/RAV. Don't forget that you'll get 10% off all services through July 4th as part of their celebration of our nation's birthday. Regain control of your finances with expert help from Tax Network USA. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more American Sunrise. That's in just a moment.
to American Sunrise. I'm American Sunrise contributor Emily Finn. Time now to take the political pulse of America. And the beat today, former ABC News correspondent Terry Moran. He's speaking out against the network, claiming they broke an agreement to re-sign his contract. Of course, ABC fired Moran last month after he posted on X calling both President Trump and Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, quote, world-class haters. The post sparking outrage from Republicans. Sparking them to ask questions about Moran's sobriety when writing the now infamous post. In an interview with the New York Times this week, Moran maintains that he was not drunk and he does not regret his post. He went on to accuse ABC of, quote, bailing on their oral agreement to renew him for 3 more years. All right, let's welcome to the show David and Terrence to discuss this a bit more. I mean, it was quite the post from Terry Moran, definitely facing the consequences, but now speaking out to the New York Times. I mean, ABC hasn't responded back. I wonder what their statement is going to be, Terrence.
Who knows? Who cares? Like, don't we have bigger fish to fry? I'm sorry. I'm back. I'm back. Yeah. Do we really care? Okay, like most people who claim to have had an oral agreement for a contract renewal or extension, and then it doesn't come through, probably going to be angry and go to the meeting. But who cares? Like, what does that really have to do with the price of rice in China?
I think he's promoting his Substack.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. At this point, I'm sorry, David, but I couldn't care less. Okay, Terry Moran, thanks. God bless you. Have a good one.
Well, I couldn't care less than you, which is less. And I don't know, is this a word? Wah wah wah. That's an expression. Wah wah wah. I don't care. Look, I listened to Terry Moran, sadly, on X for like a minute and a half. I saw a clip of him, and he was, doing his pretentious latte sipping voice, and like he's all that. And it's like, and I realized I can't get that minute and a half of my life back, and I was just really sad about that specifically. I don't care about this. I really don't. You know what? Terry Moran, line 10 people up in the street and ask people who Terry Moran is. They don't care. Anyhow.
Let's welcome to American Sunrise Steve Gruber. Let's see if he cares about Terry Moran.
I suspect, Emily, he cares less than me, even less than David, too.
Yes. That's a less.
What are your thoughts on Moran's termination? A thing of the past?
Who?
Exactly.
Who? Look, here's the thing. This guy was at ABC for 28 years. He was insignificant, inconsequential. He finally tells the truth about who he is. He's a deep state, left-wing political hack. He admits it. He's not the first one. Look, years ago when I took a job with NBC News, we got a 3-ring binder, about yay big, right? About yay big. Mm-hmm. And in this binder, it was a list of do's and don'ts. Mostly don't. And most of what all these clowns are doing on the air would have gotten me fired, and rightfully so. Look, you can't conduct yourself that way. And this idea that, well, I'm a journalist, I didn't lose my First Amendment rights, or some stupid thing that he said. I didn't listen to it very long either, David or Terrence. But the fact of the matter is, it's the one job where you can't do that. You have to show some integrity. He showed none. It's the one job. You can't do that. Look, no surprise. Walter Cronkite, Democrat. You wouldn't have known it. Mike Wallace, Democrat, over at 60 Minutes, back when these shows mattered. Didn't matter. They just hammered everybody. They ran everybody to the meat grinder equally, right? These people are not normal journalists. They're not journalists at all. They're posers because they pretend to be a journalist, and then they stick the knife in the back of anybody they don't like, or twist the narrative, or adjust the words, or, lie by omission. They do all of those things, all of the above, which is why the national news media is at its lowest level of acceptance by the American people of all time. But there is good news. CNN is going to get gutted like a fish sometime soon, because when they get spun off, all those high salaries for on-air talent and producers, they're all getting cut. Bye-bye. You think Terry Moran was kind of a messy end? Wait till CNN gets, like I said, they're going to be gutted like a fish, and rightfully so, for being a dishonest news outlet. They used to be good at this, CNN. Yeah, the Chicken Noodle News is not good at it anymore. They brought Brian Stelter back. How bad does your network have to be to bring back the human bowling ball? Seriously, the guy's as wide as he is tall.
I haven't heard chicken noodles before. I like that one, Steve. All right, let's get back to something much more important here. We have been discussing this weekend's targeted murders in Minnesota. Your reaction to Trump's assessment of Governor Tim Walz's lack of leadership. He called him grossly incompetent, said that he was a bad governor. Are you in agreement here, Steve?
Look, here's what I would say about the Democrats and the socialists and the communists and the progressives. They have a long, bloody history in this country. I think it starts with a guy by the name of James Wilkes Booth, Ford's Theater, 1865. That was the first Democrat, progressive, socialist to kill a president. Then Garfield was killed by a socialist. McKinley was killed by an anarchist. Kennedy was killed by a pro-communist guy. Let's see, we had guns blazing in the Congress in, 1954 when the Puerto Rican separatists, also progressives, came in and lit up Congress, injuring 5 members of Congress. They don't teach you that in history class, do they, about the Puerto Ricans shooting up Congress? What about the baseball game? You want to visit that one? Who was that? A crazed Bernie bro. I mean, the list goes on. How about these 2 Jewish people who are about to get engaged, murdered in the streets of Washington here recently? These are not conservatives, folks. It's a long, bloody history of Democrat radical violence against their political opponents, not the other way around. What about the guy who murdered the head of the healthcare company here recently, Luigi Mangione, another radical leftist killing people in the name of God only knows what because of their ideology. And then these people on the left have the nerve, it's Donald Trump's fault, he has changed the narrative. No, it's not Donald Trump's fault. I'll go all the way back again to James Wilkes Booth and all the way forward. And I can cite a chapter and verse of the violent Democrat, progressive, socialist, Marxist, communist individuals killing the people they don't like in America. It's a long history. It's easy to verify. There's this brand new thing you guys can use at home yourselves. It's called Google. Use it. Learn the truth.
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
I've heard of that. I'll have to look it up on Google. I'll look up Google on Google. Hey, so
Google.
Steve, let me ask you. I'll do that. Let's talk about President Trump. He's had some mini feuds, if you will. The Elon Musk thing comes to mind. Of course, Gavin Newsom. And then we've got the Tucker Carlson situation. We got to get your take on this. What is what?
What is the Tucker Carlson thing? I mean, what happened? I mean, I only picked up on a bit of it because I think that the much bigger, more important thing that has come, if I may be so bold, is Tulsi Gabbard's out, dude. She's gone. It's just a matter of, set your clock. She's gone as DNI. That's for sure. And
wait, hang
Tucker
on for
Carlson,
a second.
I heard that he called him kooky.
Yeah, so I was going to post up the Truth Social that he said. This is Trump saying, somebody please explain to kooky Tucker Carlson that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And of course, Tucker Carlson has been extremely critical of the president here, saying that his presidency could end because of this whole Israel-Iran situation. And by the way, you mentioned Tulsi Gabbard. Are you referring to what he said on Air Force One overnight, where he basically dissed Gabbard because Gabbard apparently was saying Iran is nowhere near getting close to getting a nuclear weapon? And
well, that's
Trump
part
said,
of it. And then
she's totally wrong. She's totally wrong.
Well, and he has, I don't care what she says. Well, that's a problem if your DNI is being said, I don't care what she has to say, right?
That's true.
But here's the problem. It seems that Jerry Dunleavy over at Just the News, John Solomon's operation, has corroborated the fact that Iran was a lot closer to having a nuclear weapon, giving credence to what Trump said and basically undermining Tulsi Gabbard again. I don't know where she's getting her information, but apparently it's not from a good source, and so she's out. Back to Tucker Carlson. Look, here's what I would say, and I would encourage people to go to my X account today. I have a question of the day up there, as I do every day. But this is the question because I've seen it on social media. I've seen a number of people that are strong Trump supporters saying, look, if he gets us into a war in the Middle East, I'm out. It is a deal breaker for some, not for a lot, but for about 15% of the people showing up on my X account right now. About 15% say if we get into a war in the Middle East, I'm out. There were 3 pillars to Donald Trump's election. No permanent wars was one of them. Closing the borders was another. And, of course, resetting the global financial situation, and that's where the tariffs come in. Those are the 3 things: the economy, the border, and no permanent wars. Those are the 3 things that I believe got Donald Trump elected president. If he gets us into a war. And look, here's the thing. if Iran has a nuclear weapon, we don't have much choice but to go in and do something about that. I happen to agree with that. Right now, we've had a hands-off for the most part, although it's pretty obvious that Donald Trump gave the green light to Israel and stood back and threw a head fake and told, the mullahs in Iran that he was not going to be involved, but he was going to send over Steve Witkoff to negotiate. He didn't, and then the missiles came in and decapitated the military leadership of Iran. So there's a lot going on here, but I don't know that this doesn't sit well with some Trump supporters. That's a fact. A war in the Middle East does not sit well. I mean, it's all over social media. You can look for yourself. But I guess it will depend solely on the circumstances. If Americans get killed by Iranian action, I think that's much more palatable. But look, none of us want these forever wars. We don't. We don't want a 20-year war like we saw in Afghanistan. We don't want that disgusting end like we saw in August of 2021. Nobody wants to see that again. We saw that movie. We didn't like it, and we don't want a rerun.
The reality is that the United States is going to support Israel, even if it's just in terms of means, in terms of equipment and that kind of thing. There won't be, who says there won't be? At this moment, it doesn't look like there's going to be direct involvement in any potential war with Iran from the United States. It would be indirect. But do you see globally and even regionally any support from the United States of Israel being seen as direct involvement, even though it may not be?
Well, obviously, you've got two battle groups working towards the east end of the Mediterranean. I mean, you can say what you want, but the American troops also shot down some of the incoming missiles from Iran. Of course, that's not offensive. It's defensive. It's a very important distinction. But look, we're in position. We're also in position if Hezbollah thinks that they're going to join the party from the north in Lebanon. I think that they might get smoked by American military, might. And look, it's different if we use air power. If we use missiles and fighter jets, that's one thing. Boots on the ground, whole different conversation, Terrence. Whole different conversation then. Using air superiority, that's one thing. You see boots on the ground, and I think you see a lot of folks say, wait, we didn't vote for this. We don't want this. So Donald Trump, look, he's in a tough spot. He's in the Situation Room. I don't envy his position. Tough calls to make. Does he keep Tulsi or not? Does he get more directly involved with what's going on between Israel and Iran, or does he not? We will wait to see. Of course, you got Thomas Massie over there saying he can't do any of that unless he gets approval from Congress. Thomas Massie not getting a Christmas card this year from the president, I don't believe. That's just a guess, but for a variety of reasons, not just this.
Yeah, Steve, I think the biggest question that you raised throughout this conversation is where is Tulsi Gabbard getting her information? I really want to get that question answered. Steve, thank you so much for joining American Sunrise. Now, coming up, Real America's Voices' very own Eric Bolling sat down with President Trump's sons, Don Jr. and Eric, to discuss the new Trump Mobile. You don't want to miss that conversation after the break.
Let's spill some tea.
Welcome back to the show. I'm American Sunrise contributor Emily Finn. Let's Spill Some Tea, sponsored by Artillery Tea Company. Make sure to go to artilleryteaco.com and use the promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. Artillery tea is all natural, whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free, and each tea bag can be used twice. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. Make sure to go to artilleryteaco.com and use the promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. It is time now to spill some tea. And in the cup today, Real America's Voice's own Eric Bolling had the chance to sit down with Donald Trump Jr. at Trump Tower yesterday after the Trump Organization announced Trump Mobile. They touched on a wide variety of topics, but Eric did ask Trump if he could get into politics in the future. Take a look at his answer.
He brought it up. We need more people like that. There's a guy named Donald Trump who, any interest in pursuing in father's footsteps?
You know, it's not on my radar right now. I mean, people have asked me that all day today, I guess, so it's an honor to even be considered. I spent a lot of time and energy over the last decade really making sure we can find others, again, who don't just revert to those old ways, who don't just go back to sort of the neocon ways of the Republican establishment. And what's really unique about the last 4 years, as brutal as they were, and I still think we won 2020, I think everyone with a brain understands what happened, but I think the last 4 years did us such a favor. It made the American people understand just how fragile our democracy is, just how fragile our economy is, just how fragile all these systems are. But it also was 4 years of living hell that enabled a lot of young people and a lot of people who were perhaps outside of politics to get in the game and actually fight, create a track record showing that they have that resolve. For me, another 4 years of Trump with going back to the old ways means nothing. For us, it was about creating that runway of people who believe in what my father believes. He's this incredible messenger to be able to get that out there, hammer that home. But we need people who do able to carry on that legacy. So I love that this last 4 years, was the insanity that it was, because we have a great group of tried and true America First patriots now that can do that. So no, I have no intention of doing any of that now. I love that there's others. Who knows, somewhere way down the line if it's required again. But I think it's the first time, in my lifetime where, the Republicans now, have a bench of people with followings on their own who could step in and do this so that we have, not just this 4 years of Trump, but, the next 8 years and hopefully the next 16 years and 24 years to be able to really reshape the face of American politics in America.
In a crazy way, the 4 years, although very difficult for MAGA and conservatives, may have been the best thing that could have happened.
I think without question. I mean, this 4 years really allowed us to hone those skills. But more importantly, all the Democrats had to do was shut up. Not rig an election, not do their nonsense, and you would have another 4 years of Trump, in the midst of COVID, with a weak cabinet who'd sort of been there. Because honestly, in 2016, when we got in, we didn't know. I'm going to trust this guy in D.C. Well, guess what? That guy in D.C. is looking out for his own interests. Now you have those guys who are on point, who are on message, who believe in my father, who aren't just kicking the can down the road, waiting for him to leave office so they could revert back to whoever was, paying them in their special interests. It's truly a unique opportunity. And so I think he can be so much more effective this time around than he ever could have otherwise.
All right, great conversation. Still ahead on American Sunrise. What's lost can always be found. The incredible story of a World War II soldier's dog tags finally making their way home 80 years after his death. We'll be right back with that story on American Sunrise. American Sunrise. I'm Emily Finn, filling in today for Dr. Gina. Thank you so much for joining us. Time now for the sunny side up, and in the pan today, 80 years after World War II soldier Joseph L. Gray died while serving his country, his dog tags are finally home with his family. Gray was one of 31 servicemen who crashed into a mountain on the Isle of Man while flying a B-17 Flying Fortress in April of 1945. A metal detector unearthed his dog tags in the UK island 15 years ago, and they have since been on display at a museum. But the great-nephew of another soldier who died in the same crash recognized the name on the tag and contacted Gray's family through a Facebook group. Gray's great-niece, Bridget, now has the dog tags in her possession, saying it was a wonderful moment to receive a piece of family history. A beautiful way to close out the show here today. I do have to give a shout out to my grandfather. He's a World War II veteran, Alexander Kisidlo in Michigan. You know, I don't know who has his dog tags in our family. I'm going to have to ask my mom about that, you guys.
Wow. Oh, thank you.
It's a great way to connect.
Yes.
Go ahead, David. I'm
Terrence.
sorry. No, I was just going to say that's a great way to connect, particularly for the younger generations. I don't know if you had an opportunity to meet your grandfather or not, but just being able to touch something that your grandfather, and this is good, obviously, in a war context, I think it's that much more emotional. But in any sort of context, I would imagine being able to touch something that your grandfather touched, that he cherished, it's a great way to connect, even from a spiritual aspect, I would think, David.
Yeah, and speaking of connecting, right, this happened on what, Emily, I think you said Facebook group, right? Some sort of Facebook group. So, you know, it's just so neat. You know, we always kind of talk about the ills of social media, but social media can be a good thing at times, done in the correct way, and this is one of those ways. So it's really neat to see social media kind of come to the rescue, because let's be honest, if this had happened 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 20 years ago, this probably wouldn't, well, I don't know how long Facebook's been around, but the point is, things like this might not have ever happened. So it's just nice to see that. And Emily, also closure. It's always nice to have closure in life, and this is one of those moments as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the dog tags were on display at a museum for 15 years before they were able to actually connect and get it over to Bridget here in the U.S. So that's incredible. But Terrence, I just want to go back to what you were saying. I am an extraordinarily lucky girl. My grandfather, who served in World War II, is still alive. He's turning 100 years old next month. And so we are so looking forward to celebrating his birthday. He actually inspired my journalism career. I wrote an article about him. It was titled A Life of Service. Any of our viewers can still look it up. It's from the